Have you thought of breaking through? Ain't it part of what you do? Catch a victim while he's dumb, break his larynx with your thumb. Time, and it's time to get high. Well, this ain't no goddamn dream. It's exactly what it seems. Wake up today just to lay back down and say, I won't be coming back. Let's call it a heart attack. Give me some of that knack. This is just a final payback. They all flipped on me, took my passions, left me be. When I had a place to sit, a goddamn attitude to fit. Talk real smooth, knew where to spit. But things have changed and I have quit. Got nothing to look forward to but a backlash full of lies. You're too late for where you're going. This is fate, the whistle's blowing. It's much too late. It's all too late. You're much too late. Like a piss hole punk with his nose turned up and a fragrance all your own. Tell me what it's like to be alone. And let's not forget the Scarface prick who offers fix to your face. He dropped out of the subhuman race. That's sad. Boo-hoo-hoo. But I'm goddamn glad.
And welcome back to another edition of the Michael Decon program. I look forward to once again serve you those sounds of salvation. First time listeners, turn on, tune in, and drop out. This is a very different kind of show. A place where you don't feel so alone. Let us chase away the light no matter what you at home choose to believe. I do admire you for your curiosity. For those new in attendance, thank you sincerely for finding this. All things under the sun are discussed. Typically, we are live. Then later, of course, you can find this on your favorite streaming platform. Now, joining me tonight, he makes his return. The most loved and hated guest. He's live and in the building. Mr. Michael Horn. He is the American media representative for the Billie UFO contacts. He really needs no introduction. After the break, don't go away, Mr. Lee Austin joins us once more. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me into your hearts and into your minds. Here we are again on a night like this. Hello to you in the chat room. I hope you're excited too. Michael, you are a hero, my friend. Well, I don't really know what to say about that, but thank you so much. That's very nice of you. Glad you boys and girls survived yet another week. I have remained coronavirus free. Thanks for asking. I've got to admit, my mind has been focused on the latest scare with the coronavirus. The CDC is telling us not to panic. All is contained. The president is also telling us there's nothing to worry about. For weeks, we have been talking about the coronavirus. We have talked about the possibility that this was indeed created in a lab. We have disclosed the fact that the CDC is downplaying the severity of the situation. I didn't want to mention this on the air, but I've been given no choice, to be honest. Some of these things I've been told by a loyal listener out here in Southern California. For those that don't know, I was informed by a current employee of the port of Long Beach. You know where that is? Long Beach, California, being the location where a good majority of cargo is imported and outboarded. This guy told me a number of things that turned out to be quite accurate. This current bit of news coming out about the slow labor and the fallout from the virus. Yeah, told me about this stuff weeks ago. There's already a second case out here in California. Are you ready for mandatory vaccinations? I'm not exactly sure what you in the chat room think. Should we be concerned? Now, Michael Horn will join us in a moment, and we will discuss this even further. Let's bring him in. Michael, are you alive out there?
Alive and well, alive and ticking, alive and kicking, alive as can be.
Very nice, very nice. Welcome back to the program. It's always an honor and pleasure to have you here. It's always fun.
Fun. That's an interesting term.
For sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
And in your introduction, I said you are the most loved and hated guest here on the program.
What a distinction, huh?
Well, I mean, it's very true. You're very controversial, and I like that about you, Mr. Horn. You're a lot like me in that aspect, except you get a lot more heat than I do. I wish I had that power.
Oh my gosh. Well, pick something of equally intense controversy to champion, and perhaps you two can have that heat in the kitchen.
One day. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And by the way, Michael, are you open to phone calls tonight?
Of course.
Awesome, awesome. Your phone calls are welcome, ladies and gentlemen. If you have anything to say about the Billie Meyer contacts, about the coronavirus, anything on your mind, that number is 760-332-8724. And Mr. Horn, we've been talking about the coronavirus pretty nonstop here.
Okay, what have you covered, or do you want to?
Everything. We've been talking about everything here.
Well, did you cover the fact that Billie Meyer published the warning in 1995 about the first coronavirus outbreak, which would then be officially recognized as SARS?
That we haven't discussed. That's why you're here.
Good. Okay.
I got to hear this.
Well, that's what happened in 1995. I've had that document on my website for about 15 years, probably. And it was, I can actually, while we're going through this, I'll actually look it up so that I can tell you what it said precisely. But I can tell you precisely that he definitely warned about the first, what we're calling, the first coronavirus, lab leak that led to an infection. And just so people know, in terms of what I'm concerned about, I don't focus much on the part of it that people say, well, it's deliberately done this and it's got that and all of it. The fact of the matter is, that for me, that the fact that Meyer warned about it specifically when he did, I just think that and that's only part of it, because we have another unprecedented bit of information from him, and I want to kind of get to it in a stepwise manner, if you'd like.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Okay.
But before we even dig even deeper, there will be some individuals out there, and this will be the first time they hear about you, Mr. Horn. So I thought you can briefly tell the newer listeners a thing or two about yourself.
Okay, especially as it pertains to this. I'm characteristically hoarse tonight.
That's okay.
All right. I represent the singularly authentic Billie Meyer UFO contacts. And by that I mean Billie Meyer is the only scientifically proven contactee with an extraterrestrial race. He's taken the most compelling, independently authenticated photographs, film, and video, all pre-digital, of the craft that carry the people, the human beings that he's met with for over 78 years. In addition to the photos and photographic type of evidence, he has presented for examination metal samples and sound recordings. Now, one thing that is not usually noticed at all by people is the fact that for anybody that thinks, well, he must be hoaxing this and that, that old kind of thing.
Sure.
People that hoax evidence don't generally, invite investigators to take it with them for analysis. And Meyer's evidence is so abundant and so is still irreproducible and independently authenticated over a 40-year period with the state-of-the-art evidence. So I first encountered this material, this information and evidence in 1979, a little more than 40 years ago. And I had the opportunity to meet and spend time with and get to know a bit the original investigators on the case. I've personally shared my stage in in Los Angeles presentation with an astrophysicist who came forward to basically authenticate the evidence, meaning that he, as a scientist and working with McDonnell Douglas with a top secret security clearance and all of that as a military contributor, he came forward to state that he works with a small group of scientists who believe they've made breakthroughs in their understanding of zero-point energy and hyperspace propulsion from Meyer's information and from his films, et cetera, et cetera. This is far and away different than what the UFO community, the paranormal and conspiratorial communities and sources have to offer and can't even compare with. And I've become more and more vocal about saying this is singularly authentic because it isn't about championing somebody's claims about being abducted, meeting, contacting, having babies with so-called extraterrestrials or what have you. This is singularly the most important information and evidence in human history. And I'll get to that, in the moment after I stop so I can find out where you want to go with that. And if I met the requirements here for answering your question to any degree.
Yeah, that's okay. You've answered the question.
Okay, good.
Good summary there.
All righty, because I happened to mention that Meyer published information in 1995, and he published it as one sentence, and he said, and this was one sentence in a very large body of information that has all sorts of stuff in it. A lung disease will also break out in humans through the guilt of China, where bioweapons are being researched and a carelessness is releasing pathogens, plural. And in 2003, he further clarified, he asked, do you know what the origin of this disease, referring now to SARS in 2003, and where it comes from? And the alleged, I'll only say that once, extraterrestrials explain it in the following manner. Yes, we've clarified these matters. The fact is, which will of course be vehemently denied by China, that this lung disease was caused by experiments in a secret laboratory for biological weapons in the southern Chinese province of Guangdong. The pathogen is a coronavirus mutation that was released in a laboratory accident and transmitted to humans. So that's the 2003 explanation pertaining to what was published verifiably in 1995. And of course, things have gotten a bit more intense after that because the information that was given to Meyer, I believe it was on February 23rd, and he published it on the 25th, is unprecedented because it was specifically intended for the people of Earth to read and to act upon. And that is on my blog, on They Fly blog. And the title of that article is Harsh Truth from Playarin about SARS-CoV-2 pandemic. And that is really an unprecedented outreach because it explains what this is, how it happened, and the enormous consequences to us. It also lays firmly at the feet of the WHO culpability for not immediately proclaiming a pandemic risk and being instrumental then in an immediate shutdown. So let me stop there because I know you want to say something. I'm sorry.
No, I was listening to you. I was just going to quickly add. And Mr. Horn, what do you make of the people out there who say this is all a hoax? This is all bullshit.
Right.
You know they're out there.
There's not much to say because people, are always going to do that. I have some people I know, friends of mine, who said, "Oh, it's a mainstream media hoax, or it's the deep state, or whatever." People have got to learn to think, and this is one of the main objectives of the 78 plus years of the Meyer contacts, to bring people something that's called the spiritual teaching, non-religious, belief-free instruction on how to think. Unfortunately, our free and easy access to the internet, digital media, and all has corrupted the brain cells of a lot of people who can't think their way out of a goddamn paper bag open at both ends. And they come forward with every bit of idiocy. And I say that because these are the same people, many of whom have either had access to, been sent, come upon the Meyer material, and have wanted to say, well, it's a hoax. They have failed to do anything resembling due diligence. They are completely unaware and unable to challenge over 250 specific error-free examples of prophetically accurate scientific, environmental, and geopolitical information. But they will swallow hook, line, and sinker every idiot hoax, everything bit of blather that comes out of some phony UFO contact and the rest of it. And I really, for me, you said I'm controversial. I never really think about it that way, but I know people are not happy with me. I don't care because this isn't a popularity contest for me. It isn't certainly for Billie Meyer, who has survived almost 24 attempts on his life. This is real life. And unfortunately, something that Billie Meyer published in 1958 really is true now. And he said that people will lose their ability to determine reality. They will fall prey to phantasmagoria. Their eyes will be tricked, and they will no longer be able to distinguish that which is real from that which is not real. Now, when Meyer published this information on the 25th of February, in there, we were told by these Playaran extraterrestrial human beings that the real number of infections and deaths is much higher than reported. Now, remember, this is, 4 or 5 days ago published, and Meyer had it a couple of days before that. The actual incubation period is up to 4 weeks, all the way up to 3 months on incubation. And that is why today, in my opinion, when Washington State announced the first death from this so-called imaginary hoax, that they could not account for how the person had contracted it because they had no record of traveling to China or anything like that. It's because this thing incubates over a period. It can be 3 months or so. And this person and others, we will find that it's going to be popping up everywhere. We're telling you this now so people can just, come to their senses. That person could have been exposed in very many different ways from somebody who had gone to China. When you are walking around with a symptomless, asymptomatic state, you can contaminate and infect other people. And this is happening broadly already.
Right.
We must understand this. And breathing masks, absolutely useless, because the virus is so small that it penetrates the masks that most people will be able to have, access to. Now, perhaps if the mask is helping you to not touch your face, it's a good thing. But we are in conditions now, we should be going to no mass events. We should be staying out of restaurants, oh my gosh, name it, movie theaters, gathering places for religion, churches, synagogues, mosques, political conventions, you name it, because people don't know how easily this is spread, and most people will not know that they even have it until suddenly they're symptomatic. And this is most likely, most active with people of Asian racial backgrounds. It's, as the play Aaron said, and it's already happened since then, it has spread to other racial groups. It will mutate, it will spread. And the only way this can be treated is with a hermetically sealed quarantine. And it must be longer than this 2 weeks thing, because this passes through air, through droplets, through surfaces, through animals. The first animal and animal owner were identified in Hong Kong. This is what's been published by Meyer, but for the WHO is just dangerously erroneous. It's recommending a two-week quarantine or 2 week incubation period. They're crazy, and this is going to be Meyer's material. I'm sure, as usual, will be ignored, even though some people now have gotten a hint that they're telling the truth. This confirms, if we really need it, this confirms the singular authenticity of the contacts with extraterrestrials who are publishing information through Meyer that we don't have again until he publishes it, and then we find it in the news. So this is why I'm steamed, because this idiocy of this community of alternative paranormal, you name it, people who have no sense of reality, of science, and nothing but lots and lots of claims. And then if I state Billie Meyer is the only actual, then it's attacked. Well, there's other contactees. So I go, fine, where's the evidence? And nobody has it, nobody. So I will shut up here for a minute and get off my soapbox.
Oh, don't worry. I was very interested in hearing your opinion on these certain circles, and I'm sure you've gone on plenty of other shows and talked about some of the things we're talking about here.
Yes, interestingly, I've had a good number of what we would call mainstream media interviews, even in the first one or two, which were before this was making such noise. I spoke about the coronavirus and that, this man published it, and there weren't a lot of questions about it yet, but now people are more and more curious. At least in these alternative communities, if you will, people are speaking about it, even though the focus tends to be on the conspiracy and the genetic engineering, as if we could do a damn thing about that. And this is why I have absolutely people that want to talk to me about Q.
Oh my!
Oh God!
What's your opinion on Q? By the way, it seems like that has taken off. Lots of people are enamored with quote unquote Q.
Yeah, because they can't think their way out of a paper bag either. In other words, we're supposed to accept or become interested in the idea that there's a cryptic source that's in on the real information, and this source posits Donald Trump as the center of the universe and his every breath and utterance as conveying and containing cryptic, very important secret meanings and messages for the followers of the quote unquote the master. I mean, will you give me a break here? Where was the mention by Q of specifically? Where were the warnings by this, entity for this and for the many things that we're dealing with now, for the environmental destruction that Trump tramples all over the environment? Trump tramples all over environmental agreements and any seriousness about things. People that follow that kind of a thing, they can't wrap their head around Meyer, because Meyer says this, and this, specifically, unambiguously, clearly. You don't need a Ouija board to try and wade your way through this stuff, and it's not open to all sorts of interpretations. And the people that think they belong to a movement, the Q movement, as soon as their computers or phones are off, they don't have
it's over
belonging to anything.
Right.
Dead in the water. What a bunch of nonsense. How did people ever fall for that crap?
I don't know. The whole Q thing has a big following for whatever reason.
Well, there it is. At least when those people identify themselves as followers of Q, we can step around them lightly and let them do whatever and go on our way. Totally insignificant in terms of contributing anything of real value and validity to the human process here. Who cares about Donald Trump as the center of the universe? He isn't. He's simply trampling all over everything. And I'm not a Democrat and I'm not a Republican. It's just what it is. And the danger now, especially being emboldened by surviving the crap hoax that the Democrats ran to get him out of office, they blew their chance for a legitimate exit, forcing the guy out of office. Certainly not a one of the dopey candidates is qualified and or will probably unseat. I mean, unless there's some bizarre thing that happens, that's the next president. Now look out, because with those who really run the world, they now have a willing and aggressive personality to push harder for war with Russia, which will utterly destroy our country from coast to coast, end to end, north and south, and east and west. And that too is in the Meyer prophecies going back at least to 1987. So people want to talk about Q, good luck.
My goodness. By the way, Trump called the coronavirus hysteria the Democrats' new hoax. And you sort of explained your take on that. He's been getting hit with all sorts of people criticizing him about his stance on the coronavirus. You had Michael Moore, you had Elizabeth Warren going after Mike Pence as well. And I think I even have a clip of Michael Moore if you want to hear audio of that.
Up to you, your show, buddy.
I'm just asking. I'm being polite if you want to hear that.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I don't need to hear it because, look, now everybody is politicizing this. Maybe the Democrats a little less, but the reality is this is a pandemic. We don't need any of these clowns to muck it up. This is a pandemic, and people need to take responsibility for what is coming, as even in the predictions given to Meyer 70 plus years ago in 1948. We are embarking now. And remember, for the longest time, we've talked about 2020 is the turning point for our country, for this world, the environmental destruction. We have no idea, not Greenpeace and not poor Greta Thunberg or anybody else, the magnitude of what is coming through the climate destruction. So all of this now, we have passed the point of no return, or some people like to say past the point of return, whichever you prefer. We have passed that point. From now, it is how do we navigate? Because the breakdown on every level is underway. It doesn't mean that tomorrow the world ends. It simply means that we will now see it. It will pop up. There will be unexpected exponential events, et cetera, as warned about 78. Let's see. 1948, that's 72 years ago, pardon me. And Meyer, this information has been provided to Meyer for almost 80 years, all of this stuff. So what is there to say? I mean, I don't know if people understand. This is why I have no respect for someone like Michael Shermer, who I would otherwise have great respect for simply because I like him personally from what I've seen of my life. But the hightailing it away from
I had a feeling you're going to bring up Michael Shermer.
Well, I want to make it colorful tonight.
You know what? I really appreciate that. Keep bringing the heat, Michael. I love this.
Well, look, if someone like Michael Shermer had the cojones to step forward and yes, and he wants to say, Michael Horn, I'm going to demolish your argument about Billie Meyer by the time we're done, which would probably take about 8 minutes, maybe at the most, since he's a scientist and I can rip him one based on science. Then if a guy like that says, gee whiz, maybe I was wrong, hey, we better pay attention to this. Until someone like this is going to step forward to accelerate the awareness in the mainstream media, we are going to have a still slow process. I am putting out blogs, we're putting out press releases, I'm doing interviews with wherever I can do it, knowing that the clown world is going to have to come back to all this stuff that I'm deliberately putting out, date and timestamp stuff, where we have explained in advance what's coming, and it proceeds on a basically daily basis, where the information from an extraterrestrial race that would like to help us not destroy ourselves through our stupidity, inactivity, and excesses has been published. But you know the problem? It's normalcy bias, even for the so-called paranormal community. Well, you see, we talk about these things, we speak about conspiracies, but we don't expect anything real to come along and, upheaval, throw us for a loop, because our conversations about Q and Corey Good and David Wilcock and one phony lying son of a you know what after another, that's more exciting. We can debate that.
Wait, Michael,
What's
you're,
there
you're
to
telling me
debate?
you don't believe in Corey Good?
Well, I believe he's a real person. I also believe, or I happen to know, that based on Corey Good's own published remarks, that he is a self-admitted walking mind control subject. And I don't say it with lacking compassion for him, but I'm sorry, you guys keep on doing this crap. Uh, you know, there's a price to be paid in our own lives when we spread lies and disinformation, suppress the truth. The Billy Meyer context, let me say it again, are singularly authentic. MUFON has worked hard to suppress it. They are in alliance with the CIA and State Department. I know this only because someone who is a very high level clearance, who works for a major aerospace agency, they tried to recruit him and he spilled the beans on it. It doesn't matter. MUFON's going to try to wring every dollar out of people. The SETI organization suppressed the Meyer material. They have a budget, I think it's roughly $2 to $20 million a year, something crazy, to not find what they're looking for, to not find what we've sent them. The pompous jerk Seth Shostak said, well, I see those photos, they're not real, and we haven't learned anything from this. Do you want to see people who are supposedly the singular societal representatives for scientific searching for the extraterrestrial intelligence tell you they spent $20 and they couldn't find the truth, and they couldn't buy a plane ticket to Switzerland and go knock on the door? We are a stupid, stupid bunch of people. I'm sorry. And we should be mad.
Well, I think the majority of those that follow the paranormal to a T, I think those people are kind of retarded.
Well, I don't argue with you. They're unscientific. This is what I've said about ufology. It is the most unscientific, nonsensical, precious little field where people actually get upset when people like me have the temerity to call it out, to say, hey, this is crap. I made my last presentation, I think it was at the UFO Congress in Laughlin in about 2008 or so, last, because I, for 2 years, was calling out all the other people there. Last year, I was invited to speak at Contact in the Desert.
And you passed it up. Why? You should have gone.
No, I didn't. I did.
Oh, you did go.
I spoke there, and I made sure I had, because we filmed it, I was speaking there, and I had a nice big, what do you call it, thing on my presentation, a slide on my PowerPoint, calling out all of the UFO people by name who were liars and hoaxers and charlatans.
I like that.
And yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying I like that. I like the backhanded compliments. I hope you kept bringing them in during the conference there.
Well, I read, I showed and read off the names of most everybody I could think of, because most everybody I can think of is a liar. And look, if we don't sober up, we're really in a lot of trouble. If we do not sober up, we're in trouble. And, look, you're willing to have me and maybe some other folks who are a little bit controversial on to call out this nonsensical so-called UFO community. And I appreciate the hell out of it.
I live for that.
Look, this isn't about a career, right? For me, certainly. There are many other things. I like representing this material because it's so historically unparalleled in significance. It's beyond UFOs. This is if a man in Switzerland is in contact with extraterrestrials, that's the most important story in human history. The UFO community would have you believe that everybody and their brother is a contactee, an experiencer, abductee, deductee, productee, whatever. So it's trivialized it. And unfortunately, it's made people as stupid as hell. So when do we, decide to say, hey, we've been searching for something. What do we do now that we found it? Are we really tired of finding it? Do we really not want to find it? And there it is. I mean, what else can we say about it?
Very true. And Michael, were you having tea back there? What's going on?
Oh, I'm just there's some food prep going on in the background, and we'll tone it down because it's probably rattling away on your end there.
I had no idea what was going on. I was wondering if I was invited.
Well, come on down.
I gotta go out there.
Come on up to the mountains.
Speaking of which, Mr. Horn, I have to say, when you told me how old you were, I was shocked because I always thought you were a lot younger. You have so much energy, and I always wondered, what are you taking, Mr. Horn? What is your secret?
Well, first of all, I was shocked when I found out how old it was too.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Well, I mean, there's things that I try to do because I never believed, I always believed that I was rather delicate and frail for the longest time. And then it started to dawn on me that maybe I was mistaken. So there are things that I recommend people do. I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, we are going to post, we have somebody in our little study group who's culled all the information that's in the Meyer material in English that we could find on health stuff. We'll put that up. But for me, when I was much younger, I had been involved in a lot of car crashes. I was, hit from the back, each side. One day I hit a bus. I mean, it was all, and so my back was really messed up, and my neck and my back, and I was kind of pre-arthritic by the time I was 21 or so. And
you a bad driver? Is that what's going on?
Well, I was hit from, I only hit something once, but I got clobbered. Yeah, a lot of it. Anything that was made out of metal on rubber wheels seemed to want to visit me.
No.
I got clobbered, but it got me into, someone started to teach me a little bit of yoga. We're going back to the 60s. And then I proceeded to figure out things, and I regenerated my back without, I had previously had to take medicine and wear a brace, but I fixed it up without surgery and stuff. And a short version of that long story is I actually created a regenerative movement program that I taught for, 16 years to seniors a lot. And even in California, Workman's Comp had me go in people's homes and teach them how to regenerate themselves, their movement, a seated program, a standing program. And I had gotten into Tai Chi in the 1970s, and I've kept that up. And in 1990, I got into doing Qigong. And those things, I feel, as well as learning lots of different acupressure, massage types of things that I also do in myself, I feel that those things have been very helpful for my overall health. And also learning to eat a little bit less, and, just a lot of basic things. And everybody can find their own way to do it. I mean, I've taught classes in this stuff and had a video out for the seated program for people who are trying to, regenerate their backs and shoulders and all this stuff. So I try to practice it, but I would also say there's something else. And I think when you are really focused on and intensely interested in something, and you're striving towards it, you're striving for something of value to you, then it just rejuvenates and regenerates you.
Understood. So you're not taking any supplements, anything of that nature? Okay, you are.
I do. I'm glad to tell you what some of them are, because these are things that I think people should look into, especially for these times. There's 3 that come to mind that are really extremely nutrient dense. Chlorella is one. Spirulina is another. Moringa, which more and more people are finding out about, which is a plant that grows, a tree that grows fairly well and fast, is probably the most single nutritious plant on the planet, most nutritious source of that comes from one particular plant, moringa. And then I do other things. I add vitamin C. I try this thing and that thing. take digestive enzymes, because as you get older, you may, or some people don't digest food as well. It's good to make sure you can digest what you eat. There's probably a few other things. There's certain herbs that I like. I like the herb ashwagandha. It's a adaptogen. It's very good for many things, and including adrenals and helping people cope with stress. It supposedly also aids with sleeping. And it's one of those herbs that seems to be pretty safe. It's an Indian herb, an Ayurvedic herb, I think, even ashwagandha. And and I take zinc. Men should be thinking of keeping that in their.
No anti-aging medicine, supplements, anything of that nature.
I don't think I've found anything like that. There's an oil that I take called the omega, which is, I think, supposedly high in omega-3s, and I don't know how you pronounce
Well, whatever you're doing, Michael, you look good for your age.
Well,
and I've told you that before.
Look, I try. I want to be here for as long as I can, as we all, I think, do. Most of us do.
Most of us do.
But but more important than just the number of years, you want the quality of the life to be important. And here's something else. I learned this when I was teaching seniors. I taught for many years at a place in Calabasas called the Motion Picture TV Fund. And in that place, I had one of my two oldest students, I think. My oldest students were 101 and 102 years of age. And my average age in my class was about 88. So at that time, which I, was teaching there 15, 20 years ago, whatever, I was, the youngster there, and I always felt I could learn more from my elders than I could teach them. But I got a lot of feedback from these people about how they were able to apply what I was teaching them and improve, nobody was ever hurt. They improved their spinal flexibility and just exponentially increased and all this stuff, because I'd figured out how to teach things that weren't based on yoga. They adapted certain movements from Tai Chi, but Qigong, and also Russian martial arts, which uses a lot of circular movement. So what I learned a lot from these people, many of whom smoked for 50 or 60 years, they drank, they ate a lot of meat, but they learned how to keep a certain even keel in their lives. They didn't go too far up. They didn't go too far down. They didn't take things on that stressed them out. And some of the people were still very intense, but they just didn't fall prey to, falling apart. I guess the best way to put it. So I learned from my elders. And a lot of people these days, they have no clue about learning from their elders. They don't, if they have any even around them. And, some of the elders or elders to be no longer have those reference points either. That kind of growing up in hard times, such as my quote unquote students then, through the Depression. And these were people that had something else going for them too. And that was that, for the most part, probably, even though food may have been scarcer for them at times, it was being grown on soil that still had nutrients in it. The air and water were still relatively a lot better than they are today. And virtually today, almost everything is contaminated with Roundup. I mean, we could go into all sorts of things here that the play are and have shown Meyer. That's why I said the environmentalists do not have a clue. They simply don't. And they all want to raise money to claim that they're going to, use that money to save the environment. There are certain occasional environmental, movements or projects that get done that are wonderful. They save a species, or they stop a pipeline from further polluting. But for the most part, nonsense. We cannot. Parts of the seas are dead. Atmospheric collapse is a threat. The radiation poisoning from Fukushima was already spreading through the environment within 4 days. I mean, we have no clue. So we fall into this, false sense of comfort if we, bring our own bag to the grocery store or send $10 to some organization. This is the difference between paranormal, UFO, metaphysical, New Age, and reality. And we're going to be faced with reality whether we like it or not. So we're trying to amp it up a little bit.
For sure. And Wilfred in the chat room wants to know, how old is Mr. Horn?
I'm 76 and change.
And you definitely do not sound 76 at all, my friend.
I don't know. I mean, Bernie Sanders is,
Uh-oh.
I think he's 78.
Well,
You know, he's got a lot of energy. I don't particularly care for his philosophies, but
he's got a lot of
look,
fight
I'm
in him,
grateful.
though.
He's what?
He's got a
fight in
lot
him?
of fight in him. Yeah, he's a fighter.
Yeah, yeah. He's kind of like a little bit of a, you know, a demagogue and ideologue and all the rest of the stuff. And it's good, you know, here and there. But anybody like that, if they ever got into power and actually were in power, they, you know, everybody would regret it because they're unrealistic. You know, I was talking earlier to somebody about Tulsi Gabbard, and I said if she had a chance at the presidency, I wouldn't vote for her.
You wouldn't vote for her?
No, because I wouldn't wish it on her.
Oh.
She's probably the person with the best character and real life experience, understanding the horrors of war and all the rest of it. But as we can guarantee, Barack Obama came into office full of idealism and hope and all that. We have to understand, if we don't, because they don't, certainly those who lust for that office, they do not run the country unless they are in alignment with those who run the country. And Tulsi Gabbard would be just ruined by that reality and the being confronted with the choice between having to toe the party line literally and become a warmonger or being killed. That's the way it is. Obama and his family lived under the threat of death if he didn't do what he was instructed to do, including drone strikes and, you know, camps at Gitmo and all the rest of this BS. He came in pretty clean. He was a remarkably. We don't have to like him or not like him, but all the rest of the stuff that happened that's really negative on his watch, that's pretty unfortunate.
I like Tulsi Gabbard, by the way.
Oh, I think, you know, look, she's just got a pretty clean energy about her, and it's wonderful. But she'll probably do more good for the people of Hawaii and others who are inspired by her than if she ever attained to that office and had to be turned into one of the creatures that, you know, they get turned into.
I see. And on this program, I've been talking a lot about America being either completely for a female president or just completely against one. And as you know, Mr. Horn, that's caused a bit of controversy here behind the scenes. Lots of people very angry that sort of discussion is even going down here. Is America ready for a female president? That's something that's been talked about time and time again here, and I'm curious what your opinion is.
Well, the best qualified human being should have that position, providing that they wouldn't be walking into a den of vipers. People should know that it's been long said in the Meyer material. It will be the true mothers of the millennia who bring peace to the world, who will assert the true feminine power, not the mock-up of male power that a lot of women have fallen prey to. A lot of women who have good ideas and are strong. I'm not saying that. But there's the feminine power that comes from that kind of complete energy, wisdom, and knowledge, suppressed forever in our world for millennia by religions and politics. The evil twin siblings of stupidity, mind enslavement, bloodthirsty, never-ending wars, religion and politics. Politics makes people stupid. They can't choose something that's in their best interest if it comes from somebody on the other side of the fence. Moronic, beyond belief, that human beings in this day and age, in addition to believing to imaginary sky daddies and saviors, saints, and the rest of it, still follow absolutely unqualified so-called leaders and parties and vote partisan. Really, that's what it is. So, a woman president? How about a woman leader? And there are some. Tulsi Gabbard has those qualities. She's a forerunner of the women who will ultimately and eventually come into their own rightful positions, but it's still a ways off.
Now, one thing the listeners out there have been, well, I should say the newer listeners out there who probably are females, they've been very angry with me, and I think they were females. They used rather unusual email names, so I think it definitely came from a woman who probably just stumbled upon the program on YouTube. And of course, she heard the part where I'm talking about how the women in America probably would not get behind Tulsi Gabbard because she's obviously not exactly a hateful sort of woman. She's very likable and she is attractive. And most women out there, they can't stand other women. Most women don't have, they can't even count the number of female friends they have in one hand. I mean, it's just the reality that we live in, Mr. Horn. Most of these women cannot back another woman because they hate most women.
Well, I have to admit that I don't yet know most women. I've known people, men and women, that would fit the bill, and I've known some great, great people, great women, great men. There is, I think that there are certain movements ongoing in America, primarily coming from the left, that have dumbed down a lot of the females who have ventured into and embraced the idiocy because it's political, gender-based nonsense and all of that. In my opinion, uh, I, I
Women
think
just
we
hate
have
other
to.
women. That's the thing. They're haters. They hate other women.
It could be. Again, I'm not that conversant with that level. I am more.
I hear you. It's
Uh,
okay.
yeah, I'm finding more stuff that comes to me that where politically women on the left have, where they're at least they are the ones getting, all of the press, if you will, where it's just crazy, in your face screaming, extreme leftist
Oh, those are
stuff.
fun, right?
Yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine having to go home to that. My God.
Well, also on the right, because I see this stuff on Twitter, I see it in the news and stuff. You've got women who are, I'm a proud. Okay, we know where that's going, and it's Trump can do no wrong, and they're against environmentalism, and all. So you've got women who are powerful and have a powerful voice on the right, who are sucked into that right wing narrative, or Republican or far right wing, or not always the same thing, but that narrative, and they embrace that, and it's as mindless, in my opinion, as that which goes on the left, and that's why the spiritual teaching in the Meyer material. I said before, like when your computer shut off, you're not part of any queue, nothing. There's nothing there. When you have a book like The Might of the Thoughts, a book, a real physical book, even if you got candlelight or a flashlight, you start to read, or in the case of many of us, reread and reread, and we are learning. It's just different to think, to to be able to discern, to not be polarized, to not be knee jerk, to want to question and come to one's own determination, popular or not, and to then see that you're not really in a oppositional level as a human being to your fellows, even though other opinions and points of view, you are one of equal value with the rest. And how do you come to understand and embrace and share, whether you ever mention Billie Meyer's spirituality or not? How do you live in that consciousness where you see each other human to be of equal value and love them in that way without even having to like everybody? I don't know that I can explain it better right now, but I'll tell you, it's of
Well, that's very hard,
immeasurable.
though. That's very hard to love everyone because that's not the reality that we live in. I mean, I don't love everyone, I'll be honest.
Well, we don't know what love is for the most part.
Do
We've been
you love
brought
it?
up. I mean,
Let me ask you this. Do you love everyone, Michael?
when yeah, I mean, it
You love
sounds sad.
everyone.
I don't like everybody. I don't like everybody. There's people that
There we
I
go. That's
do
the
not
answer.
like.
That's
Do
the
I
right answer.
love? Honestly, do I love them essentially and intrinsically? And yes, and can I immediately dissociate that disliking of who I perceive them to be or what they stand for or anything else? And that means people that that I have opposition with. I'm not in some drippy new age thing that love means, will you give me a hug? Screw that.
I like that.
Right. We're speaking about a different level of consciousness about our interconnectedness with each other and everybody. And this coronavirus thing is one of the things, as the environmental destruction will also be, that is going to bring us into closer contact, strange to say, and mentioning coronavirus, certainly into a much greater opportunity to develop patience and respect and love and understanding, even objectivity, neutrality, and yet be able to act from a place of values and principles, not against the other, maybe against something we don't support. It's very different to learn the teaching that is the same teaching that the extraterrestrials teach themselves and live by. Because human beings are meant to learn how the universe really works, how thinking works, the laws of cause and effect, and a few other important things. We could settle ourselves down. We could drop. I've got one issue here. There's a guy named Alex Jones.
Uh-oh, what did Alex do?
Well, this is a guy to whom, through every conceivable means, I have for a long time, including up to a day and a half ago, sent information from the Meyer case, the prophecies, the stuff on the coronavirus. This is a man, from the way it looks to me now, who is so in need of a narcissistic, egomaniacal role in life that has at its root an agenda to provoke conflict, civil war, which is coming. We're getting that. That's Meyer, 1981, 1987, forewarned of it, and it's on its way. We're in the midst of the early stages. Alex Jones, the bully with a bullhorn and a tank, who will not acknowledge this material. You would think a guy who is all about supposedly the truth and championing it and imploring everybody to buy his stupid vitamins to keep his movement alive, you'd think that man would want the truth. But I'm sorry, what a failure. He attained a position and look, there's a lot of things in there that are good and courageous. I wouldn't take that away from him. But when given the opportunity, his fear that he would lose the limelight, that the truth of the Meyer context would overshadow his puny ego, that he would suddenly become subservient to the truth and running around butting heads and stirring up people and confronting people and trying to get attacked and further the left-right polarization and war would no longer be the necessary or wise thing to do. That man is never called for reasonableness, for sitting down with those with whom you don't agree, trying to find the common values that we share as human beings, and then hashing out how we get to them, not polarizing through Trump this and that one that and left and right. So this is what we in America get from our goddamn dead end politics. We get these demagogues, and he's a demagogue who just does not want to give that up. And he's so adrenalized. He lives on that whole thing. He's got an audience, a huge audience he could tell the truth to. He could tone the rhetoric down. He could bring this down to where it should be.
He also lives in a mansion, too.
Well, whatever.
You got a big house.
I mean, look, I love living simply. I'll tell you. we're in the midst of, getting rid of extraneous stuff that's accumulated. We're talking a small space here, and just prioritizing the stuff that's really necessary and makes life livable. But was not too long ago. I lived in a rented house, 3 bedrooms, 2 story. I didn't know what to do with that damn thing. It's just too big. So I like, you know, freedom and peace, love and harmony, and having, when you have what you need, the way you define it, then you're wealthy. You're wealthy when you have what you need, not what other people define for you, not what you're told you must have to be successful and wealthy. So peace of mind, having good relationships, seeing the world as, this creation, a little speck of cosmic lint in this universe, and we're here to learn certain things which do ultimately, if we survive ourselves, we then come to a life of peace, enoughness, abundance, clean world, all this good stuff. But we're far from it now. And we're far from it because religion has promoted overpopulation. Then people say, oh my gosh, you don't mean you believe in eugenics? No. I just believe that you should get yourself an aquarium and keep adding fish to it. And then maybe you'll get the idea, folks, that we overbreed. Well, if we weren't overbreeding, we'd have enough, and the planet would be able to dispose of the waste, and children wouldn't be growing up destined for what's coming for the next several generations. But we were told that that wasn't good. We were going to kill ourselves off if we didn't overbreed. Go forth and multiply. Nobody said go forth and stop. But that's and that's clearly part of the Maya material. But there are now over 9 billion people on the planet, 9 billion, and the planet cannot produce more than it can produce. And it is, you could say, rebelling. What do you think? Locusts and plagues of locusts and all this stuff, and coronavirus.
Yeah, what do you make of that, by the way? The locusts that seems to be plaguing that country there.
Africa. And I think they've gone into China, perhaps, and other places. It's nature fights back if we want to anthropomorphize it. It means that things happen when we throw nature out of balance. It throws things up and out of balance for us. It's cause and effect. There's nobody to pray to, because that would have solved things long ago. Of course, it would have wiped out everybody on the planet, because everybody's praying for the death of their enemies. But if there was some sky daddy up there, the trillions of unanswered prayers, my goodness, it ain't gonna go down like that, people. We are intrinsically responsible for every single thing in our own lives, and until we grasp that, we have this chaos and mess coming upon us, swamp and roll over. Here it comes, and there it is. And there are things that are going to, change the way things work in many ways. It isn't just that people can be contagious walking around and show no symptoms. It's the consequences of what happens to human beings when these kinds of things that seem to be taking us on a route out of our control trigger people, panic and different things. We were warned, and did they listen? No, people didn't listen. So we now have an exciting opportunity here to navigate real life, fully aware, fully awake, doing the best we can, and having compassion for ourselves and for the other folks out there, some of whom are going to drive us nuts. But this is it. Now real life starts. And they said after 2020, the superpower USA may cease to exist if the people in America don't take certain actions. That was told to Meyer in 1975, repeated to him in 2012. It doesn't mean the country blows up tomorrow. It means after 2020, well, we are now after the beginning of 2020, the superpower USA means United States of America. We're in the early throes of a civil war. The country will ultimately encounter those two events one after the other, and then it breaks up into 4 or 5 territories. And there still might be a military industrial complex that's just salivating over destroying anybody else out there to gain whatever might over them they want. I don't know how that comes out to look. And then there's the Apophis asteroid, and we can keep on going on. But we should be cheerful now. And having said all that, if we start to see the commonality, the interconnectedness. You know, one of the things that drove me nuts, Michael, when I hear about the conservatives who all, they get very mad if you stop a project because a certain creature, a frog or a little fish or something is endangered. Now, honestly, it can sound really ridiculous to stop a project, but the folks who are generally on the side of laughing off and trampling over the environment, they're generally very religious, and for some reason, when it comes to the environment, they figure that whoever they think created everything didn't know what the hell they were doing. Why did they create that bug and this bird and this and that? Nah, that's not important. We've got to put up another condo. That's what's important, or a pipeline. So the insanity of all that, we are losing species at such an amazing rate. This sounds like, a diatribe here, but these are the things that are real. The paranormal world, there's no paranormal. There is none. It's either something that's real and that is in accordance with laws of physics that we maybe don't recognize or understand yet, or it's a hoax. Nothing in between. There's no magic going on. The only magic is how people have succumbed to preposterousness, and they don't want to live in reality. So,
No, people are
I don't.
gullible, though, Mr. Horn. You know that.
Yes. And
Unfortunately.
I've been gullible about things in my life, by the way. I think we all have, haven't we?
Sure.
Haven't we fallen for things?
All of us have, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just that once we realize that, somebody, it's like, my daughter was one who would tell me at times, Dad, um, do you really think everybody's that nice? You're really gullible. I go, what are you talking about? Well, this person, honestly, it's just like, yeah, I can carry it too far, and I don't want to. I know there's a lot of not nice out there, and I really think I've gotten past most of my gullibility, but we've got to be, I don't mind erring a little bit on, on the benefit of the doubt for people, and even though I get proved wrong. But gosh, we believe the most nonsensical stuff.
No, most people believe a lot of nonsense out there, especially online.
Yes, I agree with you. Oh, man.
I remember many years ago, back in 1999, being on the internet and talking to older folks, and all of them would say, why would anyone believe what's on the internet? And now they are all on the internet and posting what they see on Facebook and talking about it with their friends at Starbucks. It's quite remarkable how times have changed. Yes, I remember going back 2003, 2004, lots of these individuals who are hardcore Republicans now. I recall there was a time when a lot of them were saying these things now, these things you're hearing about Bush, it's all conspiracy. This is nonsense. And now they all believe in them.
Yeah.
It's funny.
What can you say, Michael? What can you say? It's just, it's a colorful thing. And I just, I want people to wake up, and because we're going to have such challenging times. Look at Italy. Out of nowhere, suddenly they had all of those cases of the viral thing.
They're getting hit right now pretty hard.
Yes, and what's coming next for Italy? I don't have the date, but it's already happened that the precursor earthquakes for the volcanoes over there have occurred. And for people who don't know what I'm saying, in 1948, Billie Meyer's first human extraterrestrial teacher published a long list of predictions. We have them all on my They Fly blog. And in there, he specified that, I think he said between 2015, 2017, there were going to be some rather strong earthquakes in central Italy that would be the forerunners of the eruptions of Mount Marsili, Mount Etna, Mount Stromboli, Vesuvius, and Campi Flegrei, 5 major volcanoes over there, in addition to the undersea volcanoes that we know very little about, and that those were going to be massive. Parts of Italy would be gone. This is the kind of thing that will come. Now, does it happen next year? I don't know. Could it start in some months? All I do know is that each one of those forewarned volcanoes started to become active last year.
Yes, and Mr. Horn, you mentioned God earlier. Are you telling me that you are now an atheist?
No, because I don't have theism as a reference point. In other words, theism is just some people's beliefs. I don't have to dignify it by being atheistic.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's like I don't have beliefs about any of that stuff other than I would say there's no evidence for that narrative. Then people say, well, something had to occur. Well, start reading the Meyer material, the spiritual teaching, and you'll start to see and have perhaps a different understanding, a different cosmological understanding that is so infinitely greater, more magnificent, complex, and all the rest than any of the religions that you'll wonder, why did I ever believe in this? A guy died and got crucified for my sins 2,000 years before I was born to commit them. Yeah, that's logical. And the rest of that Sky Daddy stuff. I mean, please. There's no historical record for Jesus Christ. Nobody ever ponders that. There's no historical record for the most important human being in history. We're told in the Meyer material, and you'd have to find out for yourself, that there was a man named Emmanuel. He's mentioned in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, where both Isaiah and Matthew, they say, and his name shall be called Emmanuel. And then the rest of the New Testament is a fictitious being named Jesus Christ. The true teaching of Emmanuel, that's already been published from the Meyer camp, if you will. I won't, I'm not going to run through everything here because there's so much. And if anybody's interested, I answer all my email. Anybody wants a free copy of a film? I'm just going to throw this in to see if people are listening. Anybody wants a free copy of the best UFO documentary ever made, The Silent Revolution of Truth? All they have to do is send me an email, mention your name, Michael, or your show, whichever they want. I'll send them a link. They can download it for free. And they'll see a lot of the prophecies and predictions that when we were making this 14 years ago have already come true. So it's a colorful land out there.
Understood. And in regards to Mr. Michael Shermer, do you love him?
Do I what?
Do you love Michael Shermer?
Sure, because the real meaning of love, it is to see that interconnectedness of everyone and everything. I happen to also like him in a strange way. I'm calling him out because he's abrogating his responsibility. But I've listened to him. I've had I had a phone conversation with him years ago. He was talking about bike riding and stuff. And I happen to agree with him about the environment and all that. But he's cowardly. And I don't like seeing that in a guy that I kind of like in, as a personality. And liking and disliking things, that's really kind of stupid. It doesn't mean much. But we do it. Do I love him in that real true sense of it? Of course. I mean, who can't you love? Because you understand the personality is not the thing we attach ourselves to, loving the personality. We love the essence. We know this is life. We know this is creation, another spirit, another universe. It's had its lifetimes. It's had its difficulties and all the rest. Will I allow it to trample on me? Absolutely not. Will I respect it? Yes. Will I push back if I need to? Sure. Can I call out Michael Shermer for being a failure in terms of his responsibility as a scientist, as a human being, as a father for humankind, for the life? Yes. And if he wants to have the discussion with me, I'd say right away, however it comes out, thank you very much. I changed my opinion. You're honorable. But you want to hide behind your skeptical nonsense with James Randi, who would owe Billie Meyer $100,000 over and over if it was even important to pursue that? This is, things are going to shake out, and a lot of these people they're going to have to start dealing with reality, and maybe they'll come in contact with some material and they will feel less than proud of themselves for having neglected it.
Can I read his email to me that was about you, Mr. Horn?
Sure.
I thought it was pretty interesting. Because, as you know, I invited him on the program back in December. And of course, this is what he had to say. Hi, Michael. I'll pass on this one. The Billie Meyer contact photos are so ridiculous that I cannot imagine devoting more than 10 seconds to the topic. And Michael Horn, I'm quite convinced, is mentally deranged. I stopped corresponding with him many years ago. Michael. And that was his email to me.
Well, as to the first part of it, he wouldn't spend 10 seconds on those photos. Unfortunately for Michael, experts from JPL, NASA, USGS, IBM, McDonnell Douglas, and others spent more than 10 seconds on them, and they authenticated the photos. So Michael's issue on the authenticity of the photos, which he's never examined, he could take it up with them, but he could take it up with me. As I mentioned to you on one of our shows, I was confronted by a skeptical former United States Air Force Office of Special Investigation supervisor 3 years ago, told me the case was a hoax. Would I talk to him? We spoke for 3 months. He disappeared, came back 5 months later and told me, Billie Meyer case, its evidence is ironclad, and I'll take on any skeptic on your behalf. Michael Shermer wouldn't last more than about 10 seconds with that fellow, and he wouldn't last much more than that with me when I start challenging him for how he actually analyzed those photos. So if his ego and his need to be right because he has a religious, kind of religious skepticism going on, if that's important, well, that's fine. It's part of his evolution. But whether I'm mentally deranged or not, sometimes I feel it a little bit when I talk to these people. It's like, what world are we living on?
I feel
Is it
that
the
way.
same one or
Yeah.
not?
I feel that way sometimes too, Michael.
I'm sure, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience feel that way.
Sure.
This isn't an elite position, and being involved actively with the Meyer material, with having gone to Switzerland 20 times in trying to trick Meyer, interviewing other witnesses. There's over 130 eyewitnesses to the craft. I'm one of them. There's over 5 other photographers, people who've seen the ET. This is done. The UFO cover-up has solely been about this. For anybody with brain cells, that's over. We got to move on. So it's not, Meyer isn't got some vaunted high-level position where he's immune from everything because he's a prophet and a UFO contactee. His life has been the roughest life on the planet. You have your arm ripped up your body, people try and kill you, kidnap your kids, all the rest of this stuff. So, I don't know. I mean, if the folks in your audience are interested in this, because I see I have to run too. I just would love it if people listen and take me up. I'll send you a free film and all that stuff. So, there it is. There it is.
No problem. Well, Mr. Horn, I do appreciate your time tremendously here. I had fun. I had a good time. I always enjoy talking to you, Mr. Horn.
Well, only my daughter's required to call me Mr. Horn, as you know.
I have a habit of doing that with everyone. I'm sorry.
It's okay, Mr. Decon.
There you go.
Decon. I understand. No, look, I enjoy it too because today I just feel like we've passed the point of no return, and we've passed the point of any form of just formality, mere cordiality. Not that you and I suffered from that, but for me, all encounters, interviews, opportunities, they have to get to the core of this. We're going to see the warnings from the Pleiaren unfold drastically, unfortunately, until people either come about it on their own or have the sense and the intelligence to take the hint here for this unprecedented outreach from an extraterrestrial race to help us survive our stupidity.
My goodness, Mr. Horn.
Yeah. Nice touch, huh?
Yeah, it was good.
Michael, may we speak again, I hope, in the near furniture.
We definitely will, Mr. Horn. But before I let you go, definitely plug anything you'd like. And my God, sure. I hope you stay coronavirus free out there.
All of us. Yeah, I have a blog, theyflyblog.com. I'm coming close to 1,000 articles there, 200 on my website. Anybody that wants a free copy of what I call the best UFO documentary made so far, just email me and mention Michael or his show, and I'll send you a link. That's it. And then the spiritual teaching, I'll tell you more about that if you like to. So I thank you immensely, Michael, and any and all persons who've listened and thrown things at the computer or their phones or whatever in frustration. But then let us do it again.
Yeah, we definitely will. We will go for a round 2 here, and we will pick up right where we left off in this conversation. Mr. Horn, it's always an honor and pleasure, and we will do this again on the other side.
It is my honor and pleasure. Thank you, Michael.
Mahalo. Take care.
Mahalo. Good.
Bye-bye.
All right.
And there he goes, the one and only Mr. Michael Horn. I hope all of you appreciated that greatly. I'm not quite sure where my other guest is, but I have a feeling there's someone else out there who has been very angry with me, so perhaps we can give them a little surprise phone call and hopefully they will answer. And maybe they will still be very upset with me, and that will be entertaining for all of you to hear that. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to the program. My goodness, was that ever long? Maybe even a little too long. I apologize for that. I certainly do. I believe there is another gentleman out there who has been very angry with me. Let's try to bring him on. Oh, and he's not answering. Yes, I had a feeling he would not answer my phone call. That's too bad. That is too bad. Now I feel terrible, really. I was excited. I thought I was going to have this gentleman on with me. I thought we were going to hash it out on the air for all of you to hear, but that did not turn out. Straight to voicemail. That only means one thing. My number might have been blocked. That's too bad. I was hoping to bring you another classic bit, but obviously that did not come to fruition, boys and girls. I have failed. I'm sorry. But let's get to business. We do have another gentleman out there who is a guest, Mr. Lee Austin. Now, hopefully he does answer. Lee,
that was quick.
There you are. What's up, Lee?
Oh, hi there, Michael. I'm good.
Very nice, very nice. And yes, I thought I was gonna get the guy on the air, but that did not turn out. Yeah, I was hoping.
Alrighty then. I guess we just move on to Plan B.
Yep, go on to the next bit. That's how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it goes. So how are you, Lee?
I'm good, Michael. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I can't complain, to be honest with you. I always have a fun time whenever you are around, Lee.
Well, I may have the coronavirus, but fortunately
no.
I've got a Lyme shot close by, so
I was just about to
things
ask,
are good.
I was just about to ask you if you are coronavirus free.
Yeah, I've got a milder version. I've got Milwaukee's best virus. It's weaker, it's watered down, and it leaves you with a headache.
Oh, really? One of those?
Yeah.
I feel that. It sounds like a Saturday to me.
Sounds like a Saturday. Have we begun the show, or should I pretend that I'm interested?
We're live. This is the show. I know, right? I can't believe it either when we're on the air. I'm saying this is the show. This is it.
Well, let me tell you what's going on with the book. It's Morningstar's Tale. It's available at Amazon in paperback or ebook, and it's Lucifer explaining how the universe works, including the flat Earth. Matter of fact, I even bought a poster, a canvas poster from Amazon last week of the moon, just so I could study it every time I walk by. I'm just obsessed with the cosmos. And as far as the coronavirus goes, I'll tell you the disease is fear, Michael. You have one person dying from it in the United States, and the president holds a press conference, and I thought, they are just blowing this thing completely out of proportion.
So you're under the impression that all of this is bullshit, in other words?
No. I believe it's real and people are dying, but it's a numbers game. 2,700 to 3,000 have died in China. That's a country of 1.3 billion people. If you wind back to the outbreak in 1918, the Spanish version, 500,000 people died. That was a killer. But we have Wall Street melting down, people freaking out, and hardly anybody has died from this. It's no different than any other flu at this point. But what amazes me, Michael, and I want to get your take on this, is the absolute fear that is permeating this entire flat plane. And notice I didn't say planet.
Flat plane, I heard that.
Yes, sir. So what is your take on it?
Well, I think it's a pretty big issue, to be honest with you. I don't exactly think the CDC is being quite transparent with the issue, and I don't think it's a serious issue in my opinion.
I agree. Let me put it in perspective.
But I do understand what you're saying, though.
At this point, the seriousness of the issue is not equal to the meltdown of the economic markets around the world in the past 5 days.
Well, that's
over the
thing.
last 5 days.
Well, that's
Wall Street has contracted more than it has since the Great Recession of 2008. The reaction is far exceeding the problem at this point. I can't imagine what it's going to be like if this does turn into a pandemic, and it could, but nobody knows.
I think it has turned into a pandemic by now.
What do you think is going on? The Chinese are lying?
I mean, we talked about this for weeks here on the channel, about how this was possibly created in a lab and leaked out by the Chinese. And we've disclosed that the CDC has been downplaying the severity of this situation. I think it's true. I've talked to another gentleman that works at the Long Beach, the port of Long Beach. You're familiar with that, right?
Yeah, I went to college there. I went to Cal State Long Beach and lived in Los Angeles for years.
For sure. Well, I know a listener who works there. He's an elderly gentleman who's been there for many, many years. I won't give up his spot more than I just did, but he's told me these things for weeks on end. And we're seeing a lot of these things that he talked about come to fruition as well, along with another gentleman by the name of Dr. Paul Cottrell. So it's a little weird.
I have a conspiracy theory that may be darker than that, and I don't know how much credence to give it. But I wonder how much of this ties into 5G.
Yeah, you
the
mentioned
fact that it's been rolled out in Beijing and Shanghai, and you and I both know the detrimental effects of 5G. Perhaps they're experimenting. Or the bigger picture, maybe it's a fruition or a prophecy coming true concerning the Georgia Guidestones to get the population down to 500,000. I mean, there's many directions you can go in. That would be the darkest direction. But as far as getting the truth from the Chinese, I do agree with you. Whatever they're telling us is a lie.
Yeah, I don't trust
because
them.
As much as our government will lie to us on occasion, you can be certain that the Chinese will do it even more.
I'm afraid so. So as soon as I heard them say not to worry, and this is nothing, I thought for sure this is something to worry about.
That's why it was concerning when Trump held a press conference today to send his condolences to the one individual who died from the disease in the United States. And I thought, why are they having a nationalized press conference to pay condolences to the first victim of the coronavirus in the United States and then tell us it's nothing? Well, yeah, one is nothing. It's one, but the simple fact that you're having a nationalized press conference says to me maybe something else is going on. Because whenever they say up, I think down.
Trump has been taking a beating, by the way, over this. Michael Moore has gone after him. Elizabeth Warren has gone after both him and Mike Pence.
Has she been firing her arrows at him?
Of course, I have audio of that. Let's play the audio.
You
know, I think I'm sure you could probably hear the audio when I play it, by the way.
Oh, you really do have audio. Okay, let's hear it.
I got audio. Let's see.
Very concerned right now. Look, I put out a plan because that's what leadership is.
And can you hear that, though, Lee?
Oh, I can hear it.
Okay, awesome. I was just making sure. Let's run that audio.
Is about. And there's a lot that we could be doing right now. We can all go back and say there's a lot we should have been doing in the past. The first job of a president of the United States is to keep people safe here in the United States. And that means not just our military, it really means public health. That's a big part of it. We should not have been making the cuts to CDC and other places that put us more at risk. But it also means as soon as this virus started cropping up elsewhere in the world, we should have been on top of it. We should have been putting the money into the research. We should be putting money into making sure that we have vaccines available, that we have tests available, and We need a coordinating person in the White House who is a true leader. And let me just say that the Vice President, Pence, he is the wrong person to be leading this. He is actually the one guy around who has experience in dealing with a virus that gets out of control, only he's the guy who went in exactly the wrong direction. He paid more attention to politics than he did to science, and that really created a health crisis in his state of Indiana. I cannot think of a worse person to put in charge of dealing with this coronavirus now.
Yeah, so Mike Pence getting some shots thrown at him there. What's your take?
One of the many reasons I'm a political atheist is that they're politicizing this issue.
They sure are.
And I'm not a fan necessarily of Trump. I'm a libertarian. I don't like anybody.
I'm with you on that one. Yes, I don't like most people.
All of it makes me nauseous. And one thing to consider about Trump personally is that he's a germaphobe. And that's not a conspiracy theory. That's a confirmed fact. He's a germaphobe. And he was allegedly incensed that any Americans were allowed back into the country after they contracted what appeared to be symptoms. So to blame him for this is politicizing a bad situation and making it worse. And I will agree with Trump on another tenet. He was talking the other day about how the media has overhyped this and it has contributed to the market melting down. I do agree with that. But nobody really knows what's going on. I like to refer to the old expression, the first casualty of war is the truth. And in many ways with the coronavirus, I think that is the first casualty of this, whatever it is, the truth. Because I'm sure the Chinese have been suppressing it. It's worse than it is. And I'm sure it broke out earlier than they said it did. But now all of this is being dumped into Trump's lap, and to put the onus and blame on a reality TV star is really misplaced blame. Nobody has control over this right now.
No, I agree with you on that one. And of course, we have seen the stock market take a hit for sure. This will play a significant role in the economy, no doubt. And earlier on in the program, in the intro, I said, are you ready for mandatory vaccinations? And Lilith in the chat room says right now, trying to scare us into vaccinations. I think that's what she said. Or into getting the flu vaccines, rather. I think that's what she said. Got to scroll up there and see exactly what Lilith was saying. Yes, that's what she said. Trying to scare us into getting flu vaccines. And she's right. Perhaps.
Think about this, you may lose your job. Depending on how this plays out, there may come a point where it's mandated, federally mandated, that in order for you to return to your job, you must first get a vaccine and prove to your employer that you've done that.
Yes.
At that point, I will be unemployed.
That's going to be wild if that does happen.
And again, this is another dark conspiratorial rabbit hole, but it seems so many times that they do come to fruition, and it's worth a discussion. And especially, isn't this the perfect event to implement mandatory vaccines?
Definitely, so this is it.
Your listeners are making good points.
Yeah, they're right. They are right.
Yeah.
We have seen the suppression by the CDC and the way everyone else is sort of going about this. I know it's a pretty severe issue. We want to prevent all these sort of things from going around. I mean, the flu as well is something that's no laughing matter. I definitely hope you are taking vitamin C out there, Lee.
No, I take D and B. I don't take C because
why not?
It tends to activate my bladder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I get tired of being activated all day.
Yeah, you might wake up with your underwear being a little moist there.
By the way, speaking of lies, have you seen the latest from NASA?
Oh no. What are our friends in NASA saying?
They said they have discovered another moon.
Oh wait, yeah, I did see that article. A second moon that's always been there, apparently.
Yes, it's the size of a car. I would assume that would be an asteroid, but they're calling it a moon, and it is a sister or a brother to the regular moon. This is our moon, our second moon. And earlier this week, the Chinese had photos of their rover on the dark side of the moon, and it was lit. And I thought the dark side of the moon was dark.
That's what I thought. And by the way, you have been covering the flat earth for such a long time, and we've talked about it plenty of times here. But this time, Lee, I thought it would be interesting for you to tell the listeners, since we are on another radio station out there in the Hudson Valley. They have no idea who you are, Lee. They have no idea that you actually were fired from your gig at one time. I thought this would be a great opportunity for you to tell that story to these newer listeners out there.
I've been in radio like you for a long time. I've actually been doing it for 30 years. From 2007 to 2013, I was working at a 50,000 watt radio station in Texas, doing the same type of show that you're doing right now, trying to get to the truth. Some call it conspiracy. I call it the pursuit of truth, going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
After that position, I moved to Austin, where I was working at a low power radio station doing the same thing. And the owner of a network in the Austin area heard me and hired me on. And for about 2 years, I did a national conspiracy radio show. And about 6 months before my termination, a caller got through and started asking me if I knew anything about the flat earth. And I said, yeah, it's insane. And you're insane. The earth isn't flat. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. And he was, okay, well, prove it without NASA, CGI, all the fake imagery. Prove it. So I went on a quest. I began to try and disprove that the earth was indeed round and not flat. Over a 6-month period and a lot of investigative work, I became a believer. Once I became a believer in the flat earth, the radio network fired me. After they fired me, I came back to Florida and wrote a book about it. Not the experience of the radio, but what the cosmology looks like. So what I did was I took the Bible, I read the books of Enoch, there's a few of them, the book of Jared, and I also read some occult books. And I lined them all up, and I found and discovered that they were all saying the same thing, that in their cosmology, in the occult, and in the Bible, and in the book of Enoch, the earth is flat. That's a motionless plane. We are the center of the universe. Polaris, the North Star, and the earth are the only two immovable objects in the universe, and that we actually do live under a dome. And for all intents and purposes, it does resemble the Truman Show. It took me about a year to write the book, 5 revisions, and I started soliciting publishers and got one to actually publish the book. The book is called Morning Star's Tale, T-A-L-E, and it is available at Amazon as an ebook or in print. And basically, it's a book narrated by Lucifer, and he explains to humans how the flat earth works, how his occultic kingdom works, how humans are built, and how all of it works together. I heard so many whack jobs on the radio talking about flat earth, I didn't want to add my name to the list, so I had to give the book credibility. That's why I decided the book was to be narrated by Lucifer, because he is the most intelligent creature ever created. And the book basically is about 80 pages long. And in the book, with derision, Lucifer explains exactly what the flat earth looks like, how he was in charge of the earth. And then, of course, through the fall, it was granted back to him. So he's the temporary landlord, but he decides to tell you the truth because he knows humans are too stupid to believe the truth. And that only emboldens him to tell all of the truth. So basically, it's a confessional by Lucifer about the flat earth, and the cosmology of this multiverse that we live in.
So, Lee, what's your beef with Lucifer? Why is he such a bad guy to you? You don't think he kind of has a bad rap for him?
If you're a Gnostic, and we talked about this off here, Michael.
Of course.
You know that I'm a Christian, and you're more. If I said Gnostic, would that be working for you?
No, more of a troll.
More of a troll?
Yes. Well, it's true.
From a Christian perspective,
yes,
I see Lucifer as the most beautiful, intelligent being created by God, maybe equal to Michael, the archangel.
The archangel, right.
So Lucifer is an archangel. He's also known as Morning Star, and that's why I call the book Morning Star's Tale. It's the first star to appear in the morning, Venus. And what happened, and you can believe it or not believe it, one day he decided he wanted to be God. And God went Tony Soprano on him, kicked him down to earth, and earth became his habitation. Then he decided to create man in his own image. Lucifer, Michael, angels, archangels are not created in God's image. That's why humans are also known as images, and that's what Lucifer, Morning Star, refers to them in the book Morning Star's Tale. So God creates man in his own image, brings him down to earth, takes the deed out of Lucifer's hand, gives it to man. That pisses off Lucifer. Lucifer finds a way for man to rebel. Man rebels. God gives the deed back to Lucifer. And to this moment, Lucifer is the temporary landlord of this flat earth. So there's this spiritual battle that's been going on for a very long time, long before you and I and man ever got here. But as far as my beef with Lucifer, when he was first created, at that point, I can see having an admiration for him because he was the great musician. He was the one who was in charge of the praise. He was God's right-hand man. But at some point, he fell and is now Satan. So Gnostics look at it as God of the Bible being the demiurge, and he's the one who created man, but is the evil God. Whereas Lucifer, the light bearer, morning star, is equal to God and is trying to enlighten man. And so Lucifer was unrighteously kicked out of his domain for trying to enlighten man and give him knowledge. That's how the Gnostics look at it.
Yeah. He might be even considered a humanist, maybe the first one.
You're taking lines from the Devil's Advocate.
That's very true, I am. I'm not joking. I mean, I have to. That's part of my job here.
That is one of the best scenes in cinematic history. The one where, Neo goes into the penthouse, and basically Al Pacino lays it all out.
That's a good
that
film.
He may be indeed the first humanist. It's a great scene.
It's great, yes.
And Pacino did an amazing job portraying Lucifer.
And by the way, Lee, I have to say, anytime you are on the program, it's always an absolute pleasure. I always enjoy our conversations, and it never fails, Lee. It's always a good time when you're on. Just like it was when the previous guest was on, Michael Horn. I have a great time with him as well.
I enjoy speaking with people that are different. I have a very difficult time fitting in to the general Christian community because in many ways they're lazy. They don't read their Bible. They don't have an innate curiosity about the cosmos. The biggest argument that Christians have against the flat earth is they'll say, what difference does it make? I'm saved. And to me, that is just being intellectually lazy. Even in the Bible, God talks about his evidence of his existence is right before your very eyes. And he's referring to looking at the moon and the sun and this beautiful place we live. I mean, the earth is beautiful. It's just that we screw it up.
I agree.
But most Christians don't seem to have that innate curiosity about who am I, where am I going, what does this place look like? And in many ways, I've been embraced more by non-believers because the one commonality you and I have, Michael, is we both have this curiosity that is insatiable.
We're
I just want to
thinkers.
know
That's the thing,
what's
though,
going
Lee.
on and where are we going.
Right, Lee. And the thing is that you and I, we are both thinkers. We are always wondering and pondering about life and its many, many mysteries out there. And these other folks that you were referring to, some of them are the simple man.
Very simplistic.
Very
Their
simple. Very.
prism, they look through a prism of Donald Trump. Their entire life revolves around him, and it becomes political worship. For me, what I find fascinating is looking up in the sky and seeing the moon half lit and wondering forever, how can that be? If the sun reflects its light off of the moon, how can the moon ever be half lit? What's causing that divide? And when I read the book of Enoch, and Enoch stated that the sun pours its light into the moon and over a 14-day period fills the moon with its light, and then over the next 14 days extinguishes it, it made perfect sense to me. So according to the book of Enoch, the moon projects its own unique cold light. And even in the Bible, it says God created two lights, the sun and the moon. And that's one of the many reasons I don't believe we ever landed on, nor will we ever go to the moon, is because you can't land on it, because in fact, the moon is a light. It is a crystalline light that cannot be landed on. It is like the sun. It is local. It is close. And that's part of the lies and the illusions that we are fed every day. But it took me 58 years of my life to come to that conclusion. And that's the lie you and I are told, Michael, from the moment we walk into school. The very first thing you and I see is a globe. And we're told that the globe is round and that's what you live on. And then we ask, well, how come people don't fall off in Australia? And the teacher says, because of gravity. And we say, okay. And then we never question it again. And then eventually we get a Trump bumper sticker and a Make America Great hat. And we stop thinking.
Well,
And we become spiritually kindergarten bound for the rest of our life.
let me ask you this really quickly here. Since we're talking about politics and we have seen America be divided as much as it has been in the last 3-4 years, well, maybe even 5 years, 6 years now. And we're seeing all this worship, it seems. Religion, well, politics has become the new religion, rather, is what we are seeing. Do you think it's a little unusual that these fans, I guess we could say, these followers, these who are worshiping false idols, would you say? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think it would be. What grieves me is so many Christians worshiping Donald Trump, literally.
That's my problem
You
right
saw-
there, though. It's
You-
very
you saw
unusual to see.
You saw the other end of the spectrum when Obama was in office. You know, you saw the far left.
That was the next
literally
Messiah.
Yeah, they were literally worshiping him. And now that the pendulum has swung to the right, it's almost as if he can do anything and get away with it and violate all Christian principles in the meantime. It's just sad. And it's another reason I'm a political atheist, because I really don't like either side. I just don't think there's a political solution, as Sting famously said when he was with the Police.
I'm with you on that one. And I like the Police reference. That was good.
Thank you. I
Nice
stole that.
touch. I like that, though. It was good. It was very apropos. And my goodness, Lee, there is a plethora, rather, of topics and subjects that we must get into here. And of course, the flat earth, we'll get into that in a second here, because of course, I did want your thoughts and opinions on the latest unfortunate news that comes from Mad Mike Hughes. I'm sure you heard.
The interesting part of that story is that I was offered a radio show on a platform that had him as a host. True story.
Really?
About 30 days ago, and I'm not going to say the name of it, but
That's
I was
okay.
offered a
Okay.
radio show talking about flat Earth. So I go to the website and I see that Mike Mad Hughes has his own radio show.
Wow.
At that moment, I thought to myself, there is no way I am going to be associated with this network if they have him as a host.
Oh,
And
yes.
30 days later, he's dead.
He's gone.
So he wanted to see if there was curvature. He decides to get into a Wile E. Coyote rocket made by the Acme Company. I mean, this is a Roadrunner cartoon.
It sure is.
He decides to go into a steam-powered rocket
Right.
that will ascend to 5,000 feet so he can see the curvature. A simpler thing to do is to go to the airport and book a ticket with Southwest, which will take you 7 times higher at 35,000 feet, and you can make your own assessment. So his premise is insane. His methodology was insane. And he probably did a very good deed in setting the flat Earth movement back a couple months. But it's another reason I don't associate with hardly anyone in this quote unquote movement, because there is no end to the whack jobs. And God rest his soul, but what he did was completely insane.
I thought you'd be a mad Mike Hughes fan.
Oh my gosh. No.
Oh,
There
well,
was
that's
no
unfortunate to hear.
study. There was no empirical evidence. It was just some guy who wanted to get into a rocket to go 5,000 feet to see the curvature. He
Yes.
obviously didn't do any of his homework.
That was lovely, right?
When I saw the rock, did you see the video?
I did. I sure the hell did. The first 20 minutes of its release, I was already on there.
When he hit the ground, you know what I was expecting to hear right after that?
What's that?
Meep, meep.
Yes, that would have been very nice if we did hear that.
It was like a Roadrunner cartoon. I was waiting for Wile E. Coyote to come up with his stable genius, or maybe Trump to come on and go, well, I thought I was the stable genius.
That was really bad. Apparently, he failed to release any of the 3 parachutes that he had.
Well, they were released as the rocket was leaving the pad.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah, one of the most important things when you get in a rocket ship with parachutes is you want to make sure the chutes are still attached when you're ready to descend. You don't want them to come loose as you're leaving the launch pad. I'm not a NASA scientist, but I'm going to say that's usually the way it works.
All I thought when I was watching that and I heard him hit, all that ran through my head were the words, "Holy shit." Basically, it was a holy shit moment.
You saw him go up. It kind of reminded me, do you remember seeing the video of Evel Knievel when he went over the Snake River Canyon?
Yes, it was like Evel
And he-
Knievel.
Yeah, and he didn't make it, but his parachute deployed.
And he lived.
I have no idea what his motivation was.
I don't either. That was
but
insane.
It certainly wasn't scientific.
No, I don't think there was anything scientific about what he was trying to do in any shape, in any way, shape, or form. To be honest.
If you want to see if the Earth is flat, one of the easiest experiments to do, and I live on the coast of Florida, I've done them myself. But if you go to St. Joseph, Michigan, and you look across Lake Michigan, you can see the Chicago, on a clear day, you can see the Chicago skyline 60 miles away. You can see the Willis Tower. If the Earth is in fact round, the Willis Tower should be about a mile under the curvature, but you can see the entire skyline. And there's
Coronavirus.
endless experiments you can do. I hope not.
I hope not either. I know you have kids, but they're not around. They're not sick or anything, right?
No, my kids are gone. I mean, I have one that lives in Austin, and the other one.
Oh, that's
I'm
right.
by myself.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're by
Yeah,
yourself.
no,
I
yeah, they're all
remember.
grown. I mean, You don't have any kids, do you, Michael?
No, I think I might be as old as your kids, to be honest.
I have a son who's 34.
Oh, he's a little bit older than I am.
Wow.
But
I just don't act my age. I was at my job the other day. I work with all millennials. I work in logistics. And so I pulled up the lyrics to Pink Floyd's song Time. The sun is the same in a relative way, but you're older.
You felt like
shorter of breath.
You felt like
one day closer to death.
You felt like a real boomer.
Yeah. And so I started singing it like Frank Sinatra.
I hear you.
Just completely improv, cracked everybody up.
Did they like your singing?
Yeah, they liked it.
Nice.
They didn't know what the hell it was about. They didn't know who Pink Floyd was.
Of course. That's expected. But oh my God, doesn't that pain you that they don't know who Pink Floyd is? Oh, that hurts.
Well, my boss came over and he and I were jawing each other, and he goes, "Okay, boomer."
Oh.
And I looked at him and I go, "Man, I would fight you right now if I didn't have to take a nap."
I'm a musician. I still play guitar and bass quite often. So there's all sorts of obscure bands that I grew up listening to. And it goes that way for most that pick up an instrument and want to play seriously. Even the younger generations will of course come across the classic bands like Pink Floyd. It's just a matter of time. But of course in an office space like the one you work at, generally speaking, I doubt there would be many people with that good sort of taste in music. Most of them are probably listening to, electronic music.
Cardi B.
Well, that's much more hip hop.
The only problem with a lot of
And
millennial men, and again, I think this is in many ways the fault of the boomers. The divorce rate was so high in my generation that your generation you were raised, not you, but millennials were raised by women.
Well,
they had no male figure.
No, I agree with you 100% on that one. There's many men out there who grew up in a single household with one parent, of course, and yeah, you could definitely tell growing up. I remember growing up with kids that were about 6, 7 years old, and I remember you couldn't specifically roughhouse with these specific kids because they would cry very easily. Oh, I remember those days, and of course you see them becoming more and more feminine as we got older. And of course I remember going back to high school, and there was a kid I knew that hung out with another friend of mine, and I always suspected that kid was a little feminine. And after he left high school, he got himself a boyfriend, but which is good. It's good to come out of the closet, especially in 2020. Lots of people out there that are gay. Sometimes they don't want to come out to their family, and that drives them to depression, and they end up killing themselves. The suicide rate in homosexuals is quite high.
I refer to a lot of millennial men as indoor cats.
Indoor cats, I like that. Indoor cats.
They were never exposed to the real world, the backyard with the other dogs.
They're very sheltered.
Not having that strong male figure made such a difference in their upbringing. And really, where I work, and I enjoy the people, they're good people, but it's indicative of what's going on around the country. I have floor supervisors in our logistics division. They're all women. The boss over them is a woman, and it's a woman-centric business. And the millennial men that work there are terrified of the millennial women. I often think no one's having sex anymore. I can't imagine millennial men going out with millennial women.
I mean, well, you
and the birth rate is way down because men are terrified of women. Men are afraid of women.
Well, I agree with you on that one, but if you're trying to say that you want these guys to go out with these girls in the office, I mean, that's not a good idea.
No,
it never works
none
out.
Of it's a good
it's
idea.
Real bad to go out with a coworker. I'm not sure if you ever played that game, but you are playing with fire when you dip the company pin in the ink, if you know what I'm saying.
Nice metaphor.
Yeah, I pulled that one out of my ass.
Actually, that's more of a that probably would have worked during the days of Ben Franklin.
For sure, yes.
Dip your pen in the. I mean, you're gonna have to come up with a different analogy that's a little more
modern,
something to do with texting or Periscope or something.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I should have just brought up Tinder.
Yeah, it's probably not best to raise your Periscope in familiar waters.
Word. Very true.
Not bad.
Yes,
Not
boys
bad.
and girls, for sure, keep that in mind. You younger folks out there, don't go out with a coworker. Trust me, it's not good.
Do you know who Jordan Peterson is?
I sure do.
What's your opinion of him?
I like him. I don't really find him too annoying. I think he has a good message. I think he helps out plenty of people out there, the younger generations who have no direction in life, that don't know what the fuck they're doing. I think he plays a role quite well for those individuals out there. But of course, not everything Jordan Peterson says is the holy word to me. He's not some messiah in my book, but he's a good guy, in my opinion, of course. It's just an opinion.
He's been going through some really rough,
tough times. Right.
He got addicted to some over-the-counter medicine,
some barbiturates, some opiate. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's in Russia right now trying to detox and almost died. But what he had done for millennial men, especially.
Wait a minute. You said he was in a coma. Someone in the chat room saying he is in a coma in Russia.
Yes.
I didn't know that. Wait. Yeah, go ahead. Cough out the coronavirus.
There he was in a coma. He still might be in one in Russia.
Wow.
He had an adverse reaction to the medication he was taking to stave off depression. His wife almost died, which sent him into a depression. And yeah, he's somewhere in Russia right now. Yeah, I was watching an interview with his daughter. I think her name is Michaela.
I like his daughter.
She was updating everyone.
She's pretty smart and pretty cute too.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I was listening to her speak. She was being interviewed, I think, on a Russian television show, and extremely articulate. You could see the apple didn't fall far from the tree.
She's very smart. But, very, very smart.
But I always enjoyed Jordan Peterson because I think he filled a void for men who felt like they were no longer men. In many ways, Jordan Peterson is a modern day Fight Club, but an intellectual Fight Club. When that movie came out, I identified with it completely.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, that's me.
That's a good movie.
And now, with millennial men not having a male role model, Jordan Peterson filled in that gap.
Definitely. However, you will have to look inside yourself and not to others in the end. That's what ultimately must happen to these individuals who follow anyone. You are left at your own. In beginning and in the end, you are alone, and you are left alone. So, within yourself, you must find.
I'm so obsessed with flat Earth. I've been single now for 12 years. I was married twice.
You were married twice?
And in total, I was married 30 years. I was married to my first wife for 10 and my second wife for 20. And at the age of 50, when my second wife left, I really began to spend a lot of time alone and tried to get to know myself, figure out who I was without anyone else in my life. And now 12 years later, the idea of a relationship, I just don't have the time, nor do I want to spend the effort. Having a conversation with someone like you, talking about coronavirus and flat Earth, to me, that's all I need. I just enjoy good conversation, a good cup of coffee, no drama, and just pursuing truth.
Have you ever tried talking to any of the single ladies that frequent these conferences in the United States? Perhaps that would be a good place for you. Maybe even going to.
You're saying maybe I should hook up at a flat Earth conference?
I think you should go to a flat Earth conference, or perhaps a better place for you, my friend, would be going to Sedona, Arizona. You would get a lot of the older attractive, blonde-haired older women out there who are into the spiritual movement. I mean, the sky's the limit for you out there, Lee.
So what you're saying is I need a flat earth sugar mama.
That's right. Make it happen.
Oh my gosh.
Make it happen, Lee.
You really think that's the answer?
I think it's the answer for all your needs. Yes. I think we can make it happen.
Oh man.
We got to send you out there.
I had no idea. Would this include a conjugal angle on it? I mean, I don't know if I can.
I'm telling you, man, if you go out there and you start pushing your book out there and you go to these conferences, you're going to get a lot of the spiritual women after you, my friend. The sacred feminine.
So what you're saying is once you go golden girl, you don't go back.
You don't go back.
You just take a nap.
Yeah, you'll have plenty of beautiful women with Xanax problems at your door.
I know you work on your radio show, and we talked off air about networking and all of that. I wanted to get your take on this. I just don't have time for a relationship. To me, it's like a job. And the age I'm at right now, sex is no longer a priority. And when it isn't burning all the time, and it's not what you think about all the time, there used to be a time when a woman would stand next to a piece of pie and I would just stare at the woman. Now, if a woman is in front of a piece of pie, I'm going to tell her to get out of the way so I can take a look at that pie.
Yeah, the pie sounds good.
Pie is great.
Pie's always good.
Pie never leaves you. Pie doesn't take half your stuff. Pie doesn't ask for child support.
Pie doesn't
ask for alimony. Pie says you don't love me anymore. Pie doesn't say I'm leaving you for the guy next door.
Pie doesn't say take out the trash. I'm sure you missed that.
And I take out the trash religiously.
Oof.
I don't mean I wear a monk garb, but I just don't have the need for a relationship. I would like to get maybe a dog or a fish.
I thought you were going to say a fish. I thought you were going to say maybe a cat.
No, I like all animals except snakes, but I'm allergic to cats. I would be coughing up fur balls. And a dog, really what you have is a permanent 3-year-old. And that's what dogs are. They're great, but they're also a pain in the ass.
I think most of them are a pain in the ass. But yes, if you go out to Sedona, Arizona, and you go out with one of these older women, they're going to have cats, by the way.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
the idea of, okay, here's the worst day of my life. I meet one of those golden girls.
Golden gals.
And we go out to the Golden Corral in Tucson.
Yes.
And then we stop off and get a McDonald's coffee.
All right.
And then she says, why don't you come back to my RV?
My RV.
And I come back to her RV.
At Walmart.
And it's littered with 15 cats. And I have an asthma attack.
And you die.
Fall on the ground, and she has to call 911.
Yes, it'd be terrible for you, Lee. I can only imagine you being in the parking lot at a super Walmart in an RV, and some cat lady is trying to call 911 on her jitterbug phone.
Yeah, if this trailer's a rocking, I'm having an asthma attack.
I love that. I absolutely love that. The visuals are strong in my mind right now.
I was at the gym about 6 months ago. Well, I go to the gym like 6 days a week, but 6 months ago, this woman gets on the treadmill next to me, and we had known each other casually, and she started explaining to me how to date a woman. And I began
How to date a woman? I got to hear this now.
Well, this woman had been married 3 times.
Oh, God.
And she was currently living with a guy. And she had found out that I hadn't dated a woman in 6 months, and she had asked me why, or 6 years. And she had asked me why, and I said, because I'm happy. I don't want to date. And so she felt the onus, the obligation to help me get back into the dating game. And she was saying things like, well, when you go out on a date, and I go, yeah, you need to ask her questions about herself. Take interest in her life and what she wants.
Oh, her favorite
And I'm thinking to myself, lady, I did that for 30 years. It doesn't work.
Yeah, so
if you get up in the morning and you can't turn to the person you're with and say, how are you? and actually mean it, you should not get married. You should not be in a relationship.
Oh my.
And that's me. I never should have been in a relationship because when I get up in the morning, I want to take a leak. I want to drink some coffee, do some reading, and I certainly don't want to have a conversation with a woman who's on Xanax.
My God. So that comment definitely hit home for you then.
Oh, I was shaking.
Oh
I was
shit.
so uncomfortable. I didn't know how to react to her because part of
Yeah.
me just wanted to say, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Well,
And
Lee,
you've been married 3 times and you're living with a guy. Why would I take that's like going to the gym and taking advice on how to work out from a fat guy.
exactly.
When fat guys talk to me at the gym
Oh
and they tell
my.
me how to work out, I don't listen to them. I'll listen to the guy who's in shape.
Yeah, that's a wise choice. And Lee, we're making a lot of progress here. I'm learning things I never knew about you, Lee. This is good. A lot of progress.
Well, we need to learn more about you. Now, what's your marital status?
I'm single.
Have you ever been married?
No.
Are you gay?
No.
Have you ever lived with a woman?
No. I mean, they've attempted to, but I ran. Or attended
So you
relationships, yeah.
You are
This show,
an anomaly, Michael. How old are you?
Lee, this show has ended relationships. I just want you to know.
Oh,
It really has. I'm not even joking. I'm not
Really?
joking. This show actually has made women tap out. And
well,
usually,
give us an example of a woman who tapped out.
well,
What
look,
happened?
here's the thing. Anytime I talk to another, a female listener or bring in a guest who's a woman, and let's say I'm seeing someone at the time and I bring them on the show, and then they end up listening to the show and they say, "Oh, you're flirting." And I think, how am I flirting? I almost said the F word right there. But yeah, I don't understand that. It's always a strange occurrence that goes on in my life. Anytime I'm seeing someone and they end up listening to the show, they end up getting jealous about this or that, and it's very unusual. But yes, this show has caused a few women to tap out. That's true.
If you met the right woman, would you consider giving up the show?
Oof. That is a difficult one right there. You're hitting me right in the heart. I don't know. That's
What if this woman?
difficult.
I know, and the reason I bring this up is I know a woman who lives in Tucson, and she has coupons for Golden Corral, and I just wanted to see where you were at.
Interesting. Well, if her, there's a lot of things to keep in mind. Lots of circumstances, yes.
Let's move back to Flat Earth.
No, I like this. I thought we were making progress here. We're learning so much. But yes, no. If there was a right woman that would come around, I'm sure they would want me to continue doing the show. I don't think they would want me to stop. If they
You just
loved
haven't
me,
found her. Are you looking for this woman?
if they loved me, they would want me to continue this show.
But if you love someone, set them free.
Interesting.
Free, set them free. Another Sting song.
Yes. And I just got a text message right now, and I'm already getting heat.
From a woman.
Of course.
So you are currently seeing a woman, and yet she is jealous over the conversation you're having with me?
Everyone gets jealous of something. It's unfortunate, but that's my life.
Everything is vanity.
I piss
I've learned
someone off.
that.
I piss someone off at all times. Somewhere, something that I do always makes someone mad.
Well, that's good, though. If everyone agrees with you, then you're a psychopath. It's always good to have an enemy and some sort of battle going on, but you want it to be for the right reasons, not because you're being a bad person or jerk, but because you're doing what you think is right and they're still coming after you. Then that's okay.
Yeah, it's all good. I don't really care. People can like or dislike me. It makes no difference.
George Carlin had a great routine about that. It wasn't even a routine, it was an interview. And I won't say the word, but he said, it's important not to give a crap. And he talked about his career. When George Carlin first started doing stand-up, he was modeling himself after Danny Kaye. And he grew up and did his stand-up during the Vietnam era. And so he was in his 30s. He was 30, and he was gearing his act towards 40-year-olds. But he realized that he was actually attracted to the 20-year-olds, that he was a rebellious person, and he didn't want to relate to their parents. He was relating to the kids. So in the 60s, you had parents in their 40s and the kids in their 20s going to Vietnam. And George Carlin, who was right in the middle in his 30s, made the decision to gravitate to the younger generation. And when he did that, that's when his stand-up career took off. And in many ways, that's what I think all of us need to do, is find our tribe and gravitate towards them. I've always gravitated towards younger people. Most of the boomers my age
The boomers
are boring. I'm a boomer, and most of them are boring. I enjoy hanging around with people that are 10, 20 years younger than me, because they still have their dreams. They still have their ambition. They haven't given up, and they're not walking around the mall going to Denny's.
My God. And you're saying this about all boomers, though. I'm sure there's some out there that are pretty hip.
It's important to stereotype, Michael.
Well, yes, that's
you
true.
You really need to learn to do that more.
I do. It gets more heat, too.
Well, let me help you out. More black guys are in the NBA because black guys, for the most part, play basketball better than white guys.
Yeah, now you're going to upset the white guys out there.
But more white guys are good at hockey, so there's more white guys playing hockey. But that, in part, is due to the fact that most hockey players are Canadian and most Canadians are white.
Are you even...
In the 60s and 70s, baseball players, there were a lot of black baseball players. But then when the inner cities developed, they started playing basketball because it was easier to have a pickup game than get 18 guys together to play baseball. So most good baseball players now are from places like the Dominican Republic.
Lots of them are.
And other Caribbean-type countries. So much of it is culture and environment.
And by the way, speaking of hockey, are you even watching hockey? Is that a sport you watch?
No, I used to play it. I went to Bobby Orr's hockey camp when I was a kid.
Interesting. Yeah, that's one sport that I don't watch at all, but whenever there's a fight and it's on YouTube, I will watch it.
Yeah, that is the only sport where you can really fight and not get arrested.
Pretty much. I think that's probably the only sport you can get into a fight and not get arrested for pummeling someone. But hockey is pretty fun. If you do ever watch it, once in a while I will, but something that normal people make a whole event out of, like they do for football, I'm not doing that for hockey.
I was watching an interview with Mark Cuban. Do you know who he is?
I sure do.
He was making a very salient point about the NBA, the ratings, the television ratings for the NBA are in the toilet. And he said that's because the demo doesn't watch TV. It's a younger demographic, and they've cut the cord. They mostly watch it on their phone or laptop. And that's true, because when you think about it, the NBA is mostly black, and probably a huge part of their fan base are young black guys. Naturally, they would gravitate more towards phones and watching it, streaming, not cable. Cable is mostly for older people.
For the boomers.
Fox News and all of that. Yeah. So he said their streaming numbers are incredible, but their television numbers are not. Whereas with football, there's not as much action, and it's over a 3-hour period. But with basketball, it's only 48 minutes, and it's always filled with action. And I thought that was a good analogy. And he also made the same analogy for hockey, which is nonstop. But again, it doesn't translate well on television. And so they rely more on their gate. They rely on people buying tickets to see the game because they don't get the television rights that you would get with baseball or football.
Right, exactly. He's smart. He knows about that, obviously. He's in the business. And he comes
Well, he's
out.
a billionaire. He should know.
Yeah, he knows
And
the
speaking
business.
of billionaires, what's your take on Bloomberg?
Mike Bloomberg, the man who's inside Jeffrey Epstein's little black book. Oh yeah, that Mike Bloomberg. Interesting guy. Very interesting guy. Very smart, I think. Very, very wise. But in that last debate, he looked like shit. He just was derailed and looked like a beta male, in my opinion. What's your take on that?
They say the problem with Bloomberg is that he has zero charisma, zero personality, and you can't change that. You are what you are.
He does have zero personality. He's very vanilla. But he's a very smart man, though.
Well, he's kosher vanilla.
He didn't get there being dumb. Let's just put it that way.
I was watching an episode of Mike Kaiser. There's two economists I watch. One is Gerald Celente. I've interviewed him. And the other one is Max Kaiser. And they were saying during a recent show that in 2008, just before the complete collapse, Mike Bloomberg was worth $3 billion. Now Bloomberg is worth $60 billion. And so the question that Max had that none of the candidates will ask is, how did you get your money? And he got his money the same way that most billionaires do, which is from the Fed printing money out of thin air at 0% interest and giving it to all their friends. And in many ways, that's what you're going to probably see happen Sunday night. I would not be surprised if the Fed cuts its overnight rate to help stem this corona crisis, but I don't think it's going to work. So when you think about it, the idea of one New York billionaire running against another New York billionaire really is an indictment for the entire system.
Yeah, I don't think he has a chance in hell, to be honest with you.
So if Bernie's the candidate,
it might be Bernie.
As much as when we go back to 2016, no one thought Trump was going to win. What if the millennials came out in force? Because Bernie's going to give them everything they want, and millennials are getting screwed, and they know it, that the boomers took all the gravy. So maybe this is the millennial revenge, picking this old guy who wants to give them all the gravy.
That's food for thought. Food for thought.
I have no idea.
Yeah, we don't know yet. We'll find out soon enough. We'll see what happens.
What do you think is going to happen? I mean, who do you think is going to be the nominee, and how do you think it's going to play out?
Shit, that's hard to answer. The Democrats can't even agree with themselves on certain things. They're always fighting amongst each other, so it is interesting to see what will go down when it comes time to. And that leads me to ask you about Michael Moore. What's your opinion on Michael Moore? He's also someone who's been going at it in the media as of late, especially on Trump and the coronavirus.
I used to be a fan of Michael Moore when he came out with the movie Roger and Me, which was an indictment on General Motors moving all their plants to the maquiladoras in Mexico and showing what it did to Flint, Michigan. I was a big fan, but to me, he's just like a walrus that complains too much.
A walrus who complains too much.
Yeah, I hope did I get too technical there?
Not at all. I just was imagining that in my head, and I thought, really, a walrus? That's pretty funny.
Kind of like Jabba the Hutt on a bad day.
I thought of a walrus wearing a top hat. That's why.
Tennessee tuxedo. What's your take on Michael Moore?
He's done some good films, some good documentaries. I liked Bowling for Columbine. I liked his documentary on 9/11, even though not everything in it was quite accurate. But Michael Moore has done some good, done some bad. Lives in another
and again, this is
huge.
Where the libertarian in me comes out, because if I was a Republican, I would just deride him without seeing the good points. But there's good points in everyone. Like you said, he's put out some good documentaries. I get tired of listening to people complain all the time. When I when I hear someone like Elizabeth Warren, it just sounds like all she's doing is whining. And then when I hear Bernie Sanders, I remember a couple of days ago I was on YouTube and a Bernie Sanders commercial came on, and it started out with him going, I just want to take a minute of your time. I just got to ask a quick favor. And I thought, that's like a stereotypical old person. When you walk into the house, it's like, hey, can you raise the window for me? It's stuck. He just reminded me of like a stereotypical old person where he was like, I need you to do me a favor.
Well, Bernie
Check
is
the oven for me.
Bernie is pretty old now.
And he had a heart attack last year.
Yeah. He's not in good health. Poor Bernie Sanders. Hopefully he's okay.
What if Bernie picked Hillary as his running mate?
That would be nuts. That would be nuts. By the way, I do have audio right now that I see it here, of Michael Moore. Let's play that audio. It's not that long.
The President of the United States, there's an obvious...
Actually, I lied. It's 2 minutes long. Is that okay with you?
I've got nothing but time. Go ahead.
All right, buddy.
Pandemic afoot across the globe. He understates how many people that we know that have it in this country. 4 times as many as the number he gave. If you have the president telling people it's a hoax, that there's nothing to worry about, that it will disappear, as he said yesterday, and it'll be a miracle. I sat there just now thinking before I came in here, which is more dangerous, a virus or a president who says that? Because at least if we were honest and knew everything about the virus and the facts were all out there, science could start to deal with it. The whatever inoculation needs to, whatever we need to come up with, whatever we need to invent, we can start that process. But the fact that we only have a few hundred test kits in this place or that place, that there's no effort at all ongoing right now to deal with the shot or whatever we're going to need to get if we need to get it, to pretend that it doesn't exist and to tell people out in Tuscaloosa or Detroit or whatever that there's nothing to worry about. And if he's wrong, and if the World Health Organization is saying it's now at the highest risk level, what do you call that man who tells his people that there's nothing to worry about? And not only that, it's made up by the Democrats and the media. This is, I hear Bernie say this all the time. This is the most dangerous president we've had. And yes, and you nod. And we've all said this maybe for 3 years. He's dangerous about this or that, the EPA, climate change, this. But this, forget about politics. Forget about Republicans and Democrats and who's running. That is the most dangerous thing I've ever heard a president say in my lifetime. And I just heard it 7 minutes ago. And I come out here and I don't know what to say to you other than what apparatus do we have to arrest, not arrest as in handcuffs, but to arrest the enforced ignorance that he is propagating here.
There we go. And that was the one and only Michael Moore.
I think if you could go back in time, Trump never would have ran for president.
Really?
I think he did it out of ego, vanity, and to increase his brand. I think Trump ran with the idea of, I'm going to run against Hillary. I'm going to lose. Out of that, my brand will become better than ever. I might even get my own network to rival Fox. This is going to be great. It's a win-win when I lose. And then he got elected. And I'm sure at this point he's like, man, I can't win. And in some ways I see his point. Because if he says it's bad, the country goes into a panic and the market crashes even more. If he says nothing's wrong, then people like Moore are going to come out of the woodwork and say he's not doing enough. But none of us know the extent of what is going on. And we talked about this at the top of the show, Michael.
Yes, we did.
With China lying, we don't know how bad this is. Nobody knows. But what irritates me is how everyone politicizes everything. Everything in life is looked through a political spectrum now. And in this case, let's face it, Trump is not equipped. Hardly anyone on this flat planet is equipped to deal with this situation. But to immediately come out and demonize Trump, you have to realize this is the presidential reality show. This guy had a show on television, a reality television show. This is not what we think it is. And nobody knows what's going on, but for the left to just come out and immediately demonize him, what good does that do? Because nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, this is an interesting time in this nation's history yet again. 2020 is a very bizarre year already, and we've just started. We are
I was
still
reading about the
still
Spanish
fresh in the game.
flu, the influenza from like 100 years ago.
Right.
500,000? No, 500 million died from that. We're not near that. We had one person die in the United States, and we have a press conference with the president today. I think people are overreacting.
Yeah, you say they're overreacting, though. It's not as severe
That's
as
what
we're
I
making it out.
think.
You think so?
I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. Let's go back to base one. What do you think?
Well,
Do you think people are overreacting?
I don't.
What do you think is actually going on?
Oh, I don't think people are overreacting. I think people want to be safe. I think it's better to be prepared than not to be prepared, to be honest with you. But that's
I
just
agree.
me. I'm not a prepper or anything like that. But I always keep a good amount of food around. I always store food and water. You never know. Because things can go down. Shit can happen, and it will. That's what we've learned.
Well, we learned it here in Florida. I'm on the east coast of Florida. I think in the last 4 years, we've evacuated 3 times. And you go from a normal day to lines out the door at Walmart and Home Depot. I mean, once people begin to panic, that's when it takes on a life of its own. So in the case of Trump, let's say things are bad, and he was to get on television today and say, things are bad, then he's going to be blamed for precipitating the panic. If he gets on television and says things are not that bad, then he's going to be derided by the left for not telling the truth, but we don't know if it's the truth. So people are looking for answers, but I'm not too sure most people even know what the question is.
And then I could agree with you with he shouldn't be going around trying to cause any sort of panic. He's doing his job as being the president and preventing those from freaking out. I understand that. But I'm not sure if he should have been using the word hoax, however. Probably not the best wordage.
No, and what it did was it triggered him. The thing about Trump, his mentor, excuse me, was Roy Cohn. And I don't know if you're familiar with Roy Cohn, but he was a notorious lawyer in New York. And his philosophy was whenever someone attacks you, you come back at them 20 times harder. And if you look at Trump's MO, that's what he does. Whenever he's attacked, he comes back and attacks that person at least twice as hard. So someone floated up the balloon on the left that, this is going on to this degree. And so Trump immediately had the knee-jerk reaction that it was a hoax. The problem with Trump is that he looks through everything through his own eyes. He reminds me of an alcoholic. He's not an alcoholic, but his brother died of alcoholism. But the best definition I've ever heard of an alcoholic is an egomaniac with low self-esteem. And that's what I think you have right now. Anytime that he feels his pride is being dinged, he'll come back and attack someone. So he took the hoax bait, and once he said that, his credibility diminished immediately.
Amazing. It's kind of a hard situation for Trump, in my opinion. Anything he does is always going to be scrutinized no matter what.
He's in a no-win situation.
Yeah, pretty much. It's unfortunate, really. He's always going to
And
get heat for
again,
something.
I get back to the fact I really don't believe he wants the job.
Yeah, you don't think
Part of the
so?
reason I think he's seeking re-election so steadily is that once he's not in office, he knows the Southern Law District of New York is going to come after him. That he's probably going to be prosecuted as a private citizen for quote unquote crimes and misdemeanors. But as long as he's president, he can't be prosecuted, which means he needs to get reelected. So I think in part, one of the reasons he wants to get reelected is so he doesn't get prosecuted.
Interesting. We will find out soon enough. Time is ticking.
Is it ever?
It is. We're winding down. We truly are. And earlier we were talking about millennials and music. And some of these millennials you speak of not knowing about Pink Floyd. Very tragic. And I'm sure they are fans of Billie Eilish, which is someone you've mentioned before on the program. I had a question about that. You know, I've never
Sure.
really paid much attention to her until you brought it up, to be honest with you. I've never really paid much attention other than besides listening to that name being mentioned on the radio or something. And I've looked into this individual here and looked at her videos, and a lot of them have like this occult theme. And I'm just curious what your take is on that. Do you think it was just the directors who are into that, which is what I believe? Or do you think she herself is into the occult? I'm not sure what your thoughts and opinions are on that.
I don't know her heart. I do know that in order to get the level of success that she's had, you have to play ball with the Illuminati. If you look at a few of her videos, for example, the video "All Good Girls Go to Hell," the opening lyrics for that song is "Satan is lonely." My Lucifer is lonely.
Really?
And yeah,
I didn't know
and
that.
the video starts out, and it's amazing because it shows a dark angel being cast out of heaven down to the earth, and that was Lucifer's fall when God cast him out of heaven, out of the third heaven. And then Lucifer lands in this puddle of mud, and Billie Eilish is Lucifer, and that's the first words, the first lyrics out of the song, "My Lucifer is lonely."
I'm not sure where I got this GIF from, but I have it up in the chat room now, and it's like women dancing and they're on fire, and I believe that's Billie Eilish walking towards me in some sort of road, and she has black wings on, and it looks like she's covered in something.
The other thing you'll notice with Billie Eilish and a lot of these younger singers who have to make their deals with the Illuminati is related to what is called black-eyed kids. Are you familiar with that?
I sure am.
Okay. This relates to my book, Morning Star's Tale, because in the book, I talk about this subject. It's called black goo. Have you heard of black goo?
Yes, I have.
Okay, then we're on the same page. If you watch the video, "All Good Girls Go to Hell" with Billie Eilish, you'll notice her eyes are blacked out. And there's another video of her just sitting at a table, and she drinks a glass of black liquid, which is symbolic of black goo, and then eventually the tears come out as black goo. And this black goo in the occult is considered the substance of hell, of the abyss. It is a tangible, sentient substance that is alive. And this ties into dark matter. This ties into CERN. But in the case of Billie Eilish, what you're seeing is a young person having to conform to the agenda of the Illuminati. And part of that is indoctrination. There's another song that she does where she's literally possessed in the song. You see her walking down this hallway.
Yeah,
of
so
this
again, let me
haunted
ask you
house.
this, Lee. Do you think these are her sort of artistic thoughts and her creativity coming out in these videos? Do you think this is coming from her, or again, do you think this is coming from a director in Hollywood
Director in Hollywood.
who's into all this sort of thing?
Yes, she, with her brother, created many of her songs in her bedroom. She's a phenom in that she posted a video on YouTube. It was called Blue Eyes or Blue Ocean, and it blew up, became viral, and she got a record contract. So she's a great example of bypassing the studio. You know, in the past, you had to get a record deal,
Right.
and then you go in the studio and cut a record, and then the record company would forward you, would give you a pittance advance. But she bypassed the entire system, recorded the album with her brother in her home in the Los Feliz area of Los Angeles. But as her fame grew, the videos became extremely demonic. And I don't believe she is the genesis of those videos. Those are created outside of her
I would have to assume,
realm.
yeah, I would have to assume so. That this is not something that she's manifesting on her own, that for sure this is influenced by those in Hollywood, those that we know so well.
Yeah, there's another guy I've been obsessed with. I can't remember. I think it's Grims or Gims, Gimms. I've been watching his video on YouTube. He's a French rap singer, and he has a video where he basically depicts how the Illuminati system works. It shows him making a blood covenant with the record executive. His career blows up, and then eventually it turns on him, and he escapes from it. But this is the price you got to pay. It's the same thing with Harvey Weinstein or Weinstein in many ways. You know, in order to get that movie role, you've got to sleep with him, allegedly, or you've got to make your deal with the devil. And it seems to be true in the entertainment industry more so than just about any other business out there.
Yeah, what's your take on Harvey Weinstein?
I would suggest he makes sure he doesn't get Epsteined at some point.
That might happen, right? He knows a lot.
Well, if he gets Epstein, I think we'll all know that he was Epstein.
Hell, he hung out with Jeffrey Epstein.
I don't think you should say hung out when you use the word Epstein.
That's true. That's true.
They
Good
hung
one.
together.
That is a good one. My God. Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, by the way.
Oh, Jeffrey what?
Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty much a given.
I have a hard
That's what
time
they say
believing.
that's what they say when someone has been suicided.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that they haven't found Ghislaine Maxwell, his right-hand gal.
They came across her at a Whataburger in the Los Angeles area, and then she disappeared.
She disappeared, and now the internet is saying that she's in Israel somewhere. But of course, you know the internet. Never know.
And the alleged business of Jeffrey Epstein was just blackmailing everyone.
It seems
Whoever
like
came
that
to his
was
island,
yeah.
he filmed them doing their deeds,
That's
and
greasy.
that's how he would get his money.
That is so greasy.
It is pretty greasy. And then I guess the other guy, who's the prince? Not the one in the can. Not Albert. I know someone's yelling it right now. Andrew.
Oh, right. Yes, Prince Andrew.
And the FBI is asking him to give them a call.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
see where that goes.
Yeah,
but,
very, very interesting. You know, the list of names in Jeffrey Epstein's little black book are quite interesting. Lots of important figures there.
apparently, Bill Clinton made 26 trips to his island.
Oh, don't worry. They were just having a barbecue. It's okay.
That's true.
No big deal. Just because you are in that book doesn't mean anything.
You're right.
Yeah, it's just, you
I
know,
apologize.
they're just friends. No big deal. No big deal. No big deal.
When you live like that, I wonder late at night if you're just laying in bed thinking, how long is it going to be before they get me? Apparently, Central Park, there was a mural of him being arrested
Really?
in his apartment.
No kidding.
Just strange.
That is strange. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. Bizarre. When you realize the world is run by very evil people, and this is where you and I will probably diverge.
I thought you were going to say
as a Christian, I believe it's the spirit of Antichrist. I don't believe.
I thought you were going to say it was ran by satanic pedophiles.
In part.
Continue.
But overall, I think they all are at the behest. It's a spirit that permeates the people that run this place. You know, in many ways, George Carlin, who was an atheist, had what I thought was the correct perspective on what was going on. One of his most infamous routines was where he talks about it's a big club. You and I are not in the big club.
Yes.
And he talks about the people that actually run the world.
I know that bit.
And it was the same with 9/11. I remember watching a video of someone coming up to George and asking him about 9/11, and he just sort of deferred the question, but you could tell in his eyes he knew exactly what happened.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. But going back to
Hollywood, when you really peel back the layer, when you really get down to the bone, it's dark. And that's what this world is. This world is run by dark, evil people that are satanically inspired, whether it's the music of Billie Eilish, whether it's propagating this coronavirus, whatever is going on. But what's interesting about this coronavirus, Michael, is that for the first time, Wall Street can't manipulate it.
Right.
They can't drop it. Even if the Fed were to drop the interest rate tomorrow, which I think they might, it's not going to help. And you can't print your way out of this because you don't have control over it anymore. The entire world is shutting down. And what's going to happen, I think, in the next 30 days is you're going to see the supply chain reaction. When you consider that all of our goods, except for food, pretty much come from China, what's Walmart going to look like in 30 days? That's my question. And are people going to freak out at that point? So maybe in another month, you're actually going to see what this contagion is really going to do.
Oh, yes. We will have to keep an eye on Super Walmart and see how the people will react there, no doubt. And just to finish up with the elites in Hollywood, it seems like the whole pedophile theme and worshiping Satan is a huge theme for Hollywood. For some reason, that obsession with being a pedophile and worshiping Satan, that seems to be like a priority for a lot of directors out there in the music business and the movie industry, and very, very strange behavior from our friends here in Hollywood, here in my own backyard in California. How lovely.
It's the best way. It's the best way to get to the top. The best way to get to the top is to make a deal with the devil.
It seems that way, doesn't it?
The more depraved you are, the more you get. He is the God of this world, and he can give you riches. And if you want to get extremely dark, then you'll become extremely rich and extremely famous. And that would include everything, including human sacrifice. The more depraved you can become in service to Satan, the further up the ladder you're going to move. That's just the way the world works.
It's very dark. Very, very dark.
I did stand up for 3 years in Los Angeles. I worked at the Comedy Store, the Improv. I was in my early 20s. I didn't know who I was. But I saw a lot of that darkness firsthand.
And there's a whole lot of it out there in Hollywood.
Absolutely.
My God. Well, I'm glad you're not doing that no more.
No, after doing stand-up, that's when I got on the radio. When I was about Gosh, I got in the radio when I was 27.
Stand-up is rough, by the way. Not easy.
No, I wasn't very good at it. I was coming up when Sam Kinison had become famous. I remember going to the comedy store in Westwood, like at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they said, "Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Sam Kinison?" Nobody knew who he was. There were like 8 of us in the club, and I was absolutely blown away. And the same thing, Robin Williams had shown up one time, like at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
But
nice. Okay.
that became normal after a while. You did your set, and then you watched other people do their set, and every once in a while would come in, and I was doing it just when comedy was really starting to take off.
Yeah, you were
I just wasn't very good.
you were in there pretty early then.
Yeah, 79, 80.
Oh yeah. You were definitely
Yeah.
there when things were starting to really kick off for stand-up comedy.
Yeah, I just wasn't very good. I didn't know who I was.
Well, shit's not easy doing that, man. That's a pretty tough gig.
And really, I don't think you can make a living at it anymore unless you're part of the elite. You know,
You got to be friends with a
and you
lot
get
of
you get a
yeah.
Netflix special because all of your material gets uploaded to YouTube, and really your only choice is to get on the road and perform in strip malls.
Pretty much. It's a hard way to make a living, definitely. Very,
Yeah, that's
very
why I like
difficult.
radio, and I know that's why you like radio so much.
Well, it's not that way. It's not like stand-up, that's for sure.
No. What I enjoy about radio is if somebody is listening to your show day in and day out and you're doing talk radio, they're going to get an idea of what kind of a person you are. Because you can fake it being a DJ, you can pretend you're happy or whatever you are.
Right.
But if you're doing talk radio and you're really talking about subject matter that is close to your heart, no matter what it is, there's a guy out of New York on Yes Network with the Michael K Show, and I just started listening to it. It's this guy named Andy DeGreca or something. He's a sidekick, but he'll go on one of these Northeastern rants about sports, and I love listening to guys on the radio get passionate about sports because I don't care, but I love listening to anybody who is passionate about anything.
About something.
Yeah, and this guy was going on about forever players. You know how baseball teams have players that played their entire career with them, like
With that team,
Ruth
yeah.
or Mantle.
Mhm.
Ted Williams was always with the Red Sox. He's a Mets fan, and he went on this tirade about Ed Kranepool, this anonymous ball player who was the only forever player on the Mets. And he just started screaming, and I just could hear his frustration, and it was hilarious because he was absolutely sold out to the passion of being a Mets fan. And I like that. I like being around people that are either all or nothing. It's like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to go all the way. And if I fail, I fail. And I like people like that.
Yeah, those sports broadcasters, they make good money doing that.
Make tremendous money.
Being passionate about
You know,
it, for
that's-
sure.
Yeah. And when you listen to especially radio, because I grew up in the Northeast, New York and Boston, Philadelphia, there's a different attitude out there. It's very aggressive,
Hell yes.
extremely passionate. When
Very-
I went to
Yeah.
broadcasting school, I actually went in your neck of the woods. I went
Boston,
in Los Angeles,
I was gonna quickly
to
say
national broadcasting.
I was going to quickly add on and say that Boston has some of the most obnoxious sports fans ever. Because they're so damn proud of their goddamn teams that they just don't shut the hell up.
It's an arrogant city.
I like it though. I'm not hating on them. I always found that amusing about our friends in Boston.
Win or lose, one of my favorite stories right now, storyline, is the Houston Astros. I lived in Houston for about 15 years, and this story about them cheating is great. The commissioner never punished them, never took away the trophy, so they fired the GM and the manager, but the players get off scot-free, and now the players are catching hell every time they play ball. And when they go on the road this year, it's going to be great entertainment, wonderful entertainment, because we all reap what we sow one way or the other.
Uh-oh, the coronavirus cough.
Did you hear that?
I
I
heard
tried
that.
to hide it.
I caught you. Yeah, you got to take some medicine there.
Actually, I'm talking to you next to a window that I opened up.
Ooh,
My cell phone coverage is not that good in my house,
I see.
so I had to open a window.
Understood, understood. But we are coming to a close here. We've been on for a while now, and my God, Lee, it's always fun and interesting to talk to you here on the program. Of course, we will have to do this again in the near future, Lee.
Yeah, I'm not too sure how you would title this segment. I'll be interested to see how it goes. This coronavirus, flat Earth, cats, Golden Corral, and the Astros,
And Xanax.
and Xanax.
And Xanax. There we go. Now it's American.
All right, Michael.
It's a very American time here on the program. Got to have that Xanax problem in here.
I think we covered everything that needs to be covered.
We really did. We touched on all bases here. I really appreciate it, Lee. It's always fun, and it's always an honor to have you here. My pleasure. It's always my pleasure whenever I have you here on the program, my friend.
My pleasure too, man. I always enjoy the conversation, Michael. You know that.
Awesome. And before I let you go, Lee, any final words, anything you'd like to plug, please feel free to do so. The stage is yours.
Well, I guess the book, it's Morning Star's Tale, Tale, Morning Star's Tale. It's available at Amazon, and it is a book where Lucifer reveals the secrets of the flat earth, his multiverse, and occultic kingdom. It is narrated by Lucifer, and he essentially pulls back the veil and explains how the world works. And it's available at Amazon.
Very nice. Definitely check out his work, boys and girls. That's Lee Austin. Lee, again, an honor and pleasure to have you grace us with your presence again.
Well, thank you for inviting me on the show, Michael. You have a great evening.
You got it, brother. Talk to you soon.
Take care of yourself.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Good night. And there he goes, boys and girls. That was Mr. Lee Austin. My God, what a great guest. And of course, looking at the clock here at the time, it certainly has flown by yet again, boys and girls. I'm afraid it's time to take it home. I want to thank all of you out there, those in the chat room. Thanks for being a part of the program. Those in the chat room have much respect for all of you. It's a show within a show. Remember, you can get a hold of me during the program via Twitter at Michael Decon. Send me a message there. I might be able to respond live on the air to you. Don't forget, if you're a fan, quote unquote fan, listener of this program and want to help fund the program, please go to patreon.com/Michael Decon, and you will find premium content there that you will not find anywhere else. This is just for the hardcore listeners out there. I've been very happy with how it's turned out. The audio is top notch. The shows have been pretty damn interesting so far. Thank you to those who have donated, and of course those who subscribe on YouTube. Really appreciate that. If you can't donate, definitely subscribe to this channel, and of course leave a review on iTunes. You can take the show with you. Remember, go to any of your favorite podcast platforms and just search Michael Decon, and for sure you will find this program. International listeners out there, thank you so much for your support too. Love all of you in the UK and Australia, Russia, and Germany. If I hope I'm remembering that correctly. I think that's the order where these countries have definitely showed their support for the program. Love all of you very much. It's been an interesting night yet again. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. This was fascinating. And of course, I return yet again tomorrow night, 5:30 p.m. That's 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. For you great East Coasters out there, the man, the myth, the legend returns. Jim Fetzer, live and direct. He will be here. Remember to stop shaking hands with strangers. Start boosting those immune systems. That biological warfare is ahead. and the mind continues to race yet again. Stay safe, everyone, no matter where you are on this island Earth. I'm Michael Decon, and with that said, the world is a mysterious place, and life itself is a mystery. Until next time, good night, everybody.